Good evening. Today is Wednesday, January 24th, and this is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion to open the meeting?
Motion to open the meeting.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. The Hendrick Hudson School District Board of Education will convene for the purpose of collective negotiations under the Taylor Law, medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment or promotion or demotion or discipline or suspension or removal of a particular person or corporation. Can I have a motion to move into exec?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, the board will be back at approximately 7 p.m. Good evening, everyone. This is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Today is Wednesday, January 24th, and the board has just returned from executive session. Before we get started, may we please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a special recognition this evening, but we're going to be moving that into the agenda, and it is going to go after Section 6, policy readings, before Section 7, work session. Can I have, I'm going to make a motion to move the distinction. Second. All in favor? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda this evening?
Motion to approve agenda.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. Then we are on the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything to pull? Nothing to pull from the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Any second? All in favor? Okay. We have a special donation that is pulled from the agenda this evening. The American Legion is here with us. They are making a donation for the Doug Mowbray Art Award Scholarship Fund, and I will let Mr. Trombley.
Thank you, President Bernard. At this time, I'd like to call Commander of American Legion Post 1030, Sean Murray, to the podium to talk a little bit about the Doug Mowbray Art Scholarship Award Fund. And we do have members of American Legion Post 1030 here as well. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Several years ago, a couple of community members had approached the American Legion and wanted to set up a fund to have a memorial benches for alumni of Hendrick Hudson who were killed in Vietnam. There were 5 people from Hendrick Hudson who were killed in Vietnam. One of those was Doug Mowbray. The other one was Patrick McGuire, Brian Russell, Frank Gouchard, and Henry Bethea. Henry Bethea already had a bench down there, so in conjunction with Bruce Fulgham and Guy Van Benschenhausen, we put together funding and raised a lot of money and dedicated these benches back on Memorial Day. The public really helped us out, and we ended up with a surplus of money. And knowing that Doug was avid art, he liked the art in Hendrick Hudson. He was in the class of 1964, and he went into the Marine Corps, and he was killed on September 15th of 1966. He lived on Welcher Avenue, so a lot of times people get confused that because he was a Peekskill resident that he didn't go to Hendrick Hudson, but as everybody knows, Welcher Avenue is part of the Hendrick Hudson School District. He also has a road named after him in Cortlandt Manor. So we just wanted to donate this money. It was meant for the remembrance of people who were killed in Vietnam from Hendrick Hudson, and we thought it'd be a great tribute to continue the legacy of the donations in the art program. So I don't know what the rules are for it. If you guys want to give out 1 scholarship or 10 scholarships, however you guys want to spend it, you spend it. You have the money. So I just want to thank the community as well as the school board for being receptive and helping us through the process. And that's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, would you mind a picture with our president,
Sure.
board president? Great.
Absolutely. As well as you, you're a vet. Where would you like us to stand?
Right around the podium.
You want it in front? Come on in front.
Yeah, keep the mic.
That's what you want.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks again. Thank you.
So just so the community knows, the American Legion is not just an organization to support veterans. They give back to so much in their communities and across the nation in the principles of what they strive for. They offer American Legion Boys State and Girls State leadership opportunities for students to help develop their leadership skills, and they're always present at any time that a community is in need. And just to further talk about who the scholarship is named after, PFC Douglas Ronald Mowbray, his name is listed on panel 10E, line 1 of the Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C., and we were able to find his yearbook picture. And his nickname was Doug, and he was identified as a laughing lad, and his smile is always full. So we hope to continue his memory and what he gave to the community and to our nation through this scholarship. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the donation? Motion to approve the donation. Second, Amelia. All in favor? Okay. All right, our next section is section 6, and we're at our policy readings. The first one is the first reading of revision to the policy 6240, investment. Erica?
This is investment policy, policy number 6240. The objectives of the district's investment policy are to safeguard district funds and to minimize risk, to ensure that investments mature when cash is required to finance operations, and to ensure a competitive rate of return. In accordance with this policy, the treasurer or his or her designee is authorized to invest and/or deposit all funds, including proceeds of obligations and reserve funds, in time deposit accounts, certificates of deposit, short-term government securities, repurchase agreements, or other investment instruments permitted by law, subject to the investment regulations approved by the Board of Education. To the extent feasible, investments and deposits shall be made in and through local or regional financial institutions. Concentration of investments in a single financial institution should be avoided. Diversification of investments and deposits is encouraged. Investments may be made either directly from an authorized trading partner or by participation in a cooperative investment agreement with other authorized municipal corporations pursuant to General Municipal Law Article 5G and in accordance with General Municipal Law Article 3A. This policy will be annually reviewed by the board and may be amended from time to time in accordance with the provisions of Section 39 of the General Municipal Law. And then the references are Education Law 1604A, 1723A, 3651, 3652, Local Finance Law 24, 25, 165, General Municipal Law 6D, 6J, 61N, 6P, 6R, 10, 11, 39, Article 3A, and Article 5G.
So, yeah, where were we? So, this policy used to be like 7 pages, and now we're down to 1. Is that like a NISBA?
This is the NISBA language, I believe, and approved by our attorneys have read through this and approved it as is. Those are, there's a lot of strike-throughs, I love. Go all the way through.
There's more pages, paragraphs.
Not for me.
Yeah, there's more. After what you read.
What is 16?
They are not online.
Dash R.
Is this,
That's the regulations.
That's the
the
regulations.
regulations.
That's
Yes.
the
That's
regulations.
the reference part of it.
Got it. We as a board vote on all.
We need to review this, so the board needs to approve this annually, and I don't believe that we have been. So,
1988.
hmm?
It looks like the last time it was revised, 1988.
Yeah, so every year we will review this in the July initial meeting, and it will be posted for approval annually. It needs to be done annually. So, the Board of Education.
no, but I mean, there's so many new policies from this year.
Maybe that folder.
So
Like, how are you ever gonna remember? There's thousands of
we
things.
subscribed to, there's a subscription service that NISBA provides
They alert you?
that sends us alerts when there are policy changes that are
Yeah.
required by law.
Yeah.
And also, the policy committee meets frequently and regularly, and part of that is to review those annual, that condition of meeting regularly will get on the schedule of what we need to review.
So there are,
Like, we'll have to make note that these ones have to be done at
these are,
this time.
there's 5 or 6 that are required. One is attendance, which we don't have to put up unless we have like an established issue. And then our shared decision-making plan will be reviewed every year. So there's not that many that we have to do every single year.
But
But
I'm saying, like, there needs to be some sort of, I mean, you're not on the board, right? Who's gonna know that? Like a spreadsheet.
The folder,
Yeah.
we have a folder, we have a policy
Carmen, you
folder.
never leave.
we have a
policy
policy.
folder.
We're keeping track of the policy
Okay.
folder, and
And we have
Mike,
Carmen.
Mike knows that we have to do
Mike
this,
has it
right?
now, as well.
Okay.
But we have Carmen.
Don't fear, we
I
have
don't
a
have any
plan.
questions. Any questions on that policy? We'll be bringing it back at the next meeting.
I think that we should be consistent and change the his or her as we have in all of the other policies that we put forward for consistency.
Yeah, just change this one to the.
You're there, designate. Where is that?
It's
The
in the
third line.
third line down.
You can even put an or the designee, right?
Yeah, or the designate. Carmen, do you have that?
That's why I just put the.
Okay. So we will bring that policy back at the next meeting. And then the next one for reading tonight is a first reading of policy 8413, transportation for non-public school students.
8413, transportation for non-public school students. The district is required to provide transportation to non-public school students residing in the district to and from the non-public school they attend if the non-public school is within 15 miles of the student's home. Non-public school students will be eligible for transportation to the non-public school they attend based on the same mileage limitations established for resident students attending district schools.
Can I make a motion to waive the reading? Anyone else wants to make a motion? Great.
All in favor?
This is Carmen, it's not clear what the revision in this is.
There is no revision. We do not have this policy currently as a policy. So
First
it's a new
reading.
policy to our
This is a,
district.
First reading today?
okay.
Well, partial reading, first presentation of the language. Waive the rest of the reading.
So why are we putting this policy? It's totally brand new.
So it codifies for the public, the board's parameters on how we provide transportation to non-public school students and how any of the processes that the administrators must follow when administering this policy.
So what were we previously doing?
It's just not.
I believe we were following the letter of the law, but without a policy guiding us. And this policy allows and gives directions to the administration to carry out
Got it.
the policy.
Okay, makes sense.
And if I could, this
So this
would
is
bring
what
up.
we're doing
Correct,
now.
correct. This is a good reminder that any families who are considering having their children participate in non-public schools and would like transportation will have to notify the Transportation Department by April 1st. And this is the time of year where we'll remind everybody that.
Are we going to send an email for that?
How do you, I mean,
No,
if they're
it's
not
on the
in public
website.
school, how?
They don't, no,
What?
it's something that Liz has on the website somewhere. I just know that because I have a lot of families that use it. Can I say something? It's going to the papers too.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we will be bringing this policy back at the next meeting. Any questions? All right.
Do we have to vote?
So
Next time.
Next
First
time.
reading.
We'll read them again. I think we are going to need a quick break for technology purposes, right? We're going to do a few things. So I'm going to make a motion to just take a 5-minute adjournment. One second.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. All right. I'd like to make a motion to return to the agenda.
Motion?
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, before we get started, I also need to move agenda item that I added for our student recognition. We'll move it to another meeting for the future, yeah. I'll make a motion to move the student recognition. Can I have a second? Motion. All in favor? All right, before we hop into the work session and before I give the mic over to Mr. Trombley, I just want to let the board know that because we have a different setup with the microphone, we're going to hold questions, write them down, and when we are done with the presentation, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions that way, because there will be no mic over here.
Thank you, President Bernard. So the administration and our guests tonight are pleased to present you 2 items for your work session. One being an update on our ELA pilot, which Dr. Margaret Reller will lead. And then we also have our special education and technology budget development presentations, which will be led by Ms. Lisa Shookman and Vinitha Joy. And just before we get started, board, I want to talk about the purpose of the work session, which is commendable that the board is engaging in it. Many people think that this meeting is a public meeting of the Board of Education. And it really is, by definition, a meeting of the Board of Education in public. And the work that you are doing in public shows in a transparent manner the work of the governance of the district. So that is why we've structured our presentations the way we have, to allow you to have time to learn about items that are occurring in the district, have a chance for you to provide feedback to us as the administration, and also have a chance for you to have conversations about the direction of the district. So we're very happy to have these 2 presentations for you tonight. And I will turn it over to Dr. Margaret Reller, our Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction and Personnel.
Good evening, everyone. I came with friends tonight. So we have been engaging in an ELA pilot in the district, K-5, at obviously elementary. And tonight we're going to share with you some of what we're learning. So I have with me on screen Janine Rizzoli, who is the ELA literacy coach, and Nikki Myers, who is a 2nd grade teacher piloting Wonders. And in person, I have Sabrina Pereira, another 2nd grade teacher, piloting Into Reading. So I'm going to turn this over to Janine to get us started, and then the 2 teachers will speak to the slides for their pilot, and then we'll take questions at the end.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Trombley and everyone at the Board of Ed and Board of Ed trustees. I'm Janine Rizzoli. I know many of you from my 18 years at Frank G. Lindsay. After 20 years of teaching, I have taken on this role. This is a new role for me as a literacy coach, and I am so lucky to work with teachers like Nicole Myers and Sabrina Pereira on this huge project that our district has undertaken. We have quite a few other staff members that are piloting Into Reading and Wonders, and they're doing a fabulous job, but we're hoping to give you a little preview of what hard work our teachers have been doing, and to kind of give you a little background knowledge on what the science of reading is, because there's been a lot of talk about the science of reading in the news and from the governor, and so that's what we're here to do tonight, and to show you how these 2 pilots incorporate the science of reading and the 5 pillars. So I can't see what's on the slide, on the Google slides, so if you could just move to the 2nd slide, that would be great. So science of reading. big thing in the news these days. So what exactly is the science of reading? And the science of reading refers to a comprehensive body of research that encompasses years of scientific knowledge with contributions from experts in the fields of all different fields: neurology, education, special education, linguistics, educational psychologists, cognitive psychologists, and many more. It's research over decades. It's reading research that it's commonly coined the science of reading, and it provides us with information we need to gain a deeper understanding of how young children learn to read, what skills are involved, how they work together, and what part of the brain is responsible for reading development. From this research, teachers can identify research-based practices for teaching foundational literacy skills, and this practice is called structured literacy. We don't often hear about that. We hear about the research, the science of reading, but the practice is called structured literacy. The science of reading refers to a body of research that tells us how children best learn to read, whereas structured literacy is how we align the research to our teaching practices. Structured literacy is the practice and the strategies, the pedagogy as defined by the science of reading. So structured literacy takes the 5 essential components that make up the simple view of reading and incorporates them into everyday instruction. And the 5 components being phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. So science of reading is the what and the why, and structured literacy is the how we deliver that instruction. So with all of that being said, a lot of information, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, my fabulous second grade colleagues, Sabrina Pereira and Nicole Walters, to talk about how the science of reading and structured literacy is incorporated in the pilots that many of our classrooms are doing for the 2023-24 school year. Take it over, girls.
Okay, thank you, Janine. Good evening, everyone. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us. This is very important work. I am very excited that my peers really saw the need for an improvement in our ELA instruction, and we really push for us to look at options, and we are at this point today that we are ahead of this movement that the state is now showing us where we're going, right? So I'm really proud of the work of my peers, of my elementary educators. So yay for us. Okay, so into reading. As you can see, this is a great picture to illustrate the elements in their literacy program. So you can see the same 5 pillars that Janine talked about that are the pillars of science of reading: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary comprehension. Also, another pillar that they use is knowledge and writing. So all of these components tied together are supported by language development and social emotional learning. I will tell you, this has a great SEL component to it. It aligns so much with the lessons that we're getting from our guidance counselors. It's actually quite amazing. And also there's a social studies alignment, but we'll talk about that later. So let's go to the next slide. We are going to start tonight. We're going to go through the different pillars, and we are going to not compare them, but we're going to give you a slide on each one. So phonics and phonemic awareness, which are really tied very closely together, where they feed into each other. So you can see the lighter box is the materials that were provided and that we use, and then the other box is instruction. So we broke down our slides this way. Each slide will be done this way. Excuse me. Every single day, there is daily direct instruction for phonemic awareness and for phonics. It is not a once in a while. It's not just in small groups. Small group is used to do as an intervention or as an extra. So every day it is whole group instruction. As you can see, the materials that we have, they're tangible. We have sound cards, high frequency words, letter cards. I don't want to read the whole list to you because you all can read. But my favorite component of this is that there are pre-made daily lessons for all of these components and some of the components on my next slide. So it is explicit instructions. It is with routine. They are different interactive games where the children get to come up to the board or stand up and act things out. So we are using a multimodal approach. having these lessons built in like this, it really builds routine, and so the children know what to expect, but there's always a little variation to keep it fresh, which is exciting for them, but that also lets us be able to get through the instruction. I did at the last page, just an FYI, there's a link, and that is what I linked for you to see, one of the pre-made lessons that is provided. So on your computers, if you have a chance, you can look at that later. We go through every day our phonemes. We go through, we clap or break them down by sounds, which are phonemes, syllables. Each week there is a different focus, and that focus is embedded in your spelling. It's also then practiced daily, but it's also practiced in our decodable text, which we'll talk about on the next slide as well. So everything is overlapping. There's a full immersement, if you want to say. The other thing we do, which is great, is at the beginning of each week, there are 10 high-frequency words. So one of our activities is the children, we put up the words large for them to see. They go and they get 10 cards. They write out the new high-frequency words. They add them to their card ring. And one of the things is they daily go through their card ring. So we are building on weekly. One thing to note, because Nikki and I are going to refer to our programs and we say weeks, my program is 12 modules, which are like our units, and each module is 3 weeks long. So when I say weekly, the components are for, technically in the book it says 5 instructional days. They tend to be longer, but just so a frame of reference, you know what I'm referring to. If we go to the next slide, I just wanted to give you a glimpse. We did bring materials for the board to peruse, but at home, so you can see, this is just some quick shots of some of the materials we have. The large document with the purple sides, those are the teacher manuals. They're very friendly. They're easy to navigate. And also you can see on the top, there's 3 smaller boxes. I do, you do, we do. That's the gradual release that Margaret has been talking about for years, because it's good teaching. So what's really nice about this is that nothing is thrown away. It's not all new. What I really am happy about the science of reading, which is one thing that Hopple said that I really appreciated, back to basics. We are teaching our children in this program the way that we were all taught, where grammar is important, phonics is important, phonemic awareness is important, daily, every day, explicit instruction, not just let's say it and see if it sticks. So also over there you have some pictures of our sound cards, some blended boards we have. So for phonemic awareness you have picture cards. We also use the heart words, so they're letting you know what's decodable and what's not, because as we know that could be difficult in our language. So those are just some of our components. We have physical pieces of all of those, but we also have the ability to do it digitally. And of course, we have the ability to pull all of our children for small group for any intervention we need to do as well. And let's change to Nikki. So for the next slide.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Hi. I'm going to be looking at the slideshow because I can't see it, but thank you for accommodating me. Hi, everyone, and I'm happy to be here. So you are probably, okay, you're going to be looking at 6, which is just the connection between Wonders and how it's based in the science of reading. So they have the same research-based practices, and the best kind of image that they could use is Scarborough's reading rope, which is basically just taking those essential strands of language comprehension and putting them together with the word recognition strands, and how is that being braided together and working in to create hopefully skilled lifelong readers. They also look at reading, as Janine mentioned, which is just language comprehension, coding, word recognition, and comprehension. So basically, the program is really focusing on lessons with the right content at the right time. And then they have a lot of scaffolds to help students who are not able to get it at the right time. And so we want to be teaching in an explicit manner. And Wonders, I've also included in the last slide, the of science of reading in the program, so you can look at that at a later time. You can say, next slide, please. Are you on phonics and phonemic awareness?
Yes, we are, Nikki.
if you looked at the presentation, you may have noticed that a lot of the materials for Wonders and Into Reading are very similar. And they have all of the same pillars based in science of reading. So we have sound spelling cards, we have word building cards, high frequency word cards, there's decodable readers, and there's passages. We have a huge online digital component where there's a lot of games. We have daily lessons, and we also have practice, Blackboard Practice Masters, where kids are also working on these skills for awareness and phonics on as well. We do phonics and phonemic awareness every day. Whole group, direct, systematic instruction, and they have instructional routines that are built in that build fluency, and we also follow the gradual release framework. If there are students who are not getting that spelling pattern of the week, there's just plenty of opportunity to take a small group and work on it further, and that's built into the teacher edition if you look at the phonics lessons. And the way that it really works is we look at a new spelling pattern every week. And throughout the week, we follow these routines of blending and segmenting. We do phoneme deletion, we do phoneme addition, and we look at things like C cover, spell cover, right? Which is the idea is to give them multimodal opportunities to kind of work the spelling pattern in many different ways. So they're reading the words, they're spelling the words, they're writing the words, they're using them in sentences, and it's the 60 words that they get every week, and they get 10 high frequency words as well. It's a little bit of prep work because I print them out for them, but they do take them and then I add them to a binder ring. So like Sabrina mentioned, we are having continuous practice and building on that high frequency word knowledge. We do a pre-test and a post-test. So there's an assessment with that you can already see what they kind of already know. And then you're hoping that at the end of the week, when you give it to them again, that you're showing growth. And there's also phonics center activity cards. So whatever the spelling pattern is for the week, the students can then do independent and partner work with their word building cards or their high frequency word card rings. Kind of really flexible in how you do whole group, small groups, and independent work. I think the next slide, yes. So just an overview of some of the materials you're looking at. This is kind of a snapshot of my teacher edition. So it's kind of what a phonics lesson will look like. You're looking at a sound spelling card in the corner, and then you're looking at an introduction for short A and short I. Those orange boxes are examples of how you might differentiate in instruction. That's really good. And that yellow box here on the right-hand corner is a phonics and fluency card. All of the materials that you're looking at for Wonders are also available online. So they can also be projected out to the class at any time. And you have differentiated instruction options, and then you have, again, that independent skill. You have the center activity cards, and you have a lot of visual activity cards as well. Doing a little bit of feedback, sorry. You have digital activities as well, phonemic awareness. And then a view of what the decodable readers look like and the word building. You're also looking at a snapshot of the focus on word work. So this is going to come at the beginning of a text set. So Sabrina mentioned her modules and how long they are. We usually have 3 text sets, and for second grade there is so we do a text set for week 1 and 2, a text set for week 3 and 4, a text set for 5, and then you have week 6. An integration and assessment kind of period. Unit is 6 weeks. And again, you're looking at all of the components of that work for the weeks. You have your games, a response board, you have word building cards, high frequency word cards, readers, and also passages, which we'll do more of that.
Okay, I'm back now. Okay, we're now going to talk about fluency, decoding, and vocabulary in Into Reading. Fluency and decoding really go hand in hand also with phonemic awareness and phonics. So you're going to hear some things repeat or what flows into each other. So there is, our fluency lessons are also built into that daily lesson in the morning, our slides that we have, which are great, so it's direct instruction. Each week we have 10 high frequency words, which I mentioned before, which are embedded in our decodable text. In the decodable text, which I know you have a book there are 2 stories per week, which the high frequency words and the phonics lessons of the week are inside of those stories. So options and opportunities for us to practice again and again for the students who need it. Also, inside of our lessons, it's where we explicitly teach fluency lessons, which is not something that always is done. So what are fluency lessons? That's intonation, that's a reading rate, that's phrasing. So for the child at home, who you might know one that lived in your house at some point who reads like a robot, we work on not doing that because that's not how we speak, and if we're reading unlike how we speak, our comprehension is not going to be as strong. So everything feeds into the next component. We also use blended boards, which you will see there's many different versions of them. We build words, we pull words apart, we look for root words. We also are teaching things like, which ties into our vocabulary, we're also teaching prefixes and suffixes. And we're teaching meanings and root words, and we're teaching the different endings like ed. And what does that mean when you put an ed at the end? It has a meaning and how it changes the word. We have interactive games that we play in the classroom where children can get up, but we also can do these games. If we wanted to, as a review, we can assign things online for children to play. In small group instruction, for any kind of intervention, we can use our blended books. So what's great about this program is that our digital platform, we can access K through 6. So it really enables the teacher to really tailor what they need for their student. So if I have a child who can't get the TH digraph, and that is not part, let's say, of my curriculum, I could go on to the website, I can find a blended book, I could print it out, and I can tailor my materials to the needs of my student and do an intervention lesson with them. The decodable texts are also used for intervention and also do different skills phonics lessons as well. That is just in our fluency and decoding. Trying to think of anything else that is important there to say. No, everything is embedded in the materials. And of course, we have Waggle. Our Waggle is like Into Reading's iReady. It's adaptive lessons, so the children go on and they take a beginning assessment to benchmark them and see where they are, and then based upon how they score, they get put on a path, and then as they improve, their path changes, and teachers can also go on there and give them additional lessons and change it as needed if we need to. Switching to vocabulary, which, oh no, don't change the slides, that's me, I'm sorry. So the light slides up there say the vocabulary, materials, and instruction. I have to tell you, this is probably one of my favorite components about this. Something that we have seen recently is a weakness in our vocabulary. Our children have not had a strength in this, and we've noticed that on our testing. So what's great about this is each week, in each week, we get 10 new power words, they're called. And these power words are embedded in our readings. So we're going to talk about our stories on the next slide, but we have 3 different stories a week. And so if you do the math, we're going to do 360 rigorous power words. And it's like, okay, so you're doing them, but do the kids get them? Yes, they do. If you look on the bottom of the slide, you will see a picture of the pumpkins, and it's varying. And on the back of each card, it tells you, it gives you ideas of the meaning, how to teach it, different things like that. There's activities we do. What's great about this is the children are acquiring the language. And from day one, we opened the book, the first lesson, it was antonyms and synonyms of words. I was like, it's September. In 2nd grade, this isn't going to happen. And we started there, and now they're telling me. So last week, a bragging moment for a quick second. The word, we're doing fairy tales now, and the word was traipsing. How many of you use that every day? So traipsing, and I said, what do you think it is? And we acted it out, and we talked about it, and one of my children raised his hand, and he said, wait, traipsing is kind of similar, it's kind of a synonym to wandered, because wandered was a word of ours 2 weeks ago. I felt very good about that. I'm just saying. Okay, the other thing that we use in here, there is a high-level literary language that is used. We are using reading vocabulary with these children, everything from the proper word of genre, and then all the different titles of genres, which are very different than what we had when we grew up, by the way. They have application pages. They have interactive vocabulary games that you can assign them, and they're really cute, and the kids like them. The vocabulary is highlighted inside of all of our literature. And when you also do your small group instruction with the additional Rigby Reader Library, which we did not get in the pilot, I gave you a sample book that we had received, but if we purchased this program, we would be getting them. There's additional vocabulary that is inside of the Rigby Reader that we would have exposure, that we could expose the children to. So, yay for us. It's also Waggle. You can assign it there as well. And one more slide I think I have there. So here, these are just some snapshots again. As you can see, the page with the blue title, Introduce Oral Language. That is what the teacher page manual looks like for the vocabulary words. Also next to it, a box of some of the words we've been doing. That's an example on the top. The purple box is of a blended board. We do blended boards every day, and they change and they grow. And they also review. Super important. They go back to past concepts, and the children catch on that we're reviewing, which is great. Another picture of there on the side is one of our decodable texts. That's what they look like, very friendly. And we use the decodable text in our instruction, in our morning slides. That's what we use for fluency. So we model on it, and we will do like an echo sometimes, read. It's great. The kids have fun with it because we can make it fun. And on the bottom you can see there's just a snapshot of what intonation is. I did one thing I wanted to mention that I heard Nikki mention to you earlier. The spelling, we also do pre-test, we also do a post, but it's not a test. It's a check-in. It's a way for us to see if the phonics is sticking, if there's concepts we have to go back to. Inside of it has review words as well. And a lot of our phonics, the way ours is introduced, it rolls out, but it adds on. Does that make sense? So it will, like we just did the k sound this week. So kite was in there again, and the kids are like, well, we did kite before. I said, but right, we did kite for Magic E, but now we're doing it for a different purpose. So you get to see if they're holding on to what you already taught them, and it's being used differently. Our spelling also is differentiated. We have differentiated spelling lists, and the way that they tell you you can teach spelling is very similar to Words Their Way, which is great because our staff is trained in that, and the kids know it. So we're talking about word sorts and blind sorts and partner sorts, and it's a really nice connection. All right, back to Nikki.
Okay, hi. So I'm taking a look at my fluency decoding and vocabulary slide, and I just noticed that there's a material on there that's not there, but if you look at the fluency and decoding materials, we use the high frequency word cards the kids have on their binder rings. We also have a set of decodable readers. They're within the units. There's like not that many. There's only a few, but they are for each week. They have them. So like a unit 1 decodable reader is small, but it has multiple different stories inside. And we use those for fluency practices as well. What's not under that materials is the phonics and fluency cards that are aligned with the pattern of the week. There's an image of them on the next slide when I look at the materials that I'll let you know. And what Wonders also has differential genre passages, and you'll see an image of those as well. Differentiated, I have them in levels where it is and it's on, and they're varied in a way that the approaching is kind of like less words, a few simpler words that have been swapped out on a level, and then beyond has harder, more compound words. But it also has opportunities for reading. Right? And there's a component on there you'll see at the end where, in theory, the children are supposed to be testing themselves and working with a partner to check for fluency. It's not exactly appropriate for a 7-year-old to do that, but it is a nice to have to do words per minute and itself. So it's a nice way to assess and just kind of take a checkpoint about where they are. We also have Reader's Theater, which is and in terms of fluency and decoding instruction, I wouldn't say that there's fluency lessons every single day, but we are always constantly working on fluency within all of the texts that the students use. And there are dedicated lessons that can be taught in small groups weekly. And because this program has so much, when you put on like the Common Core pathway as the most important, sometimes they become optional, but it's always up to the teacher to say a small group, okay, we need to work on the following accuracy and intonation, or rate an expression with this. And I also do structured partner reading where kids are listening to each other, and we do a combination, like Sabina mentioned, of echo reading, close reading, and choral reading. You're looking at a picture of their writing companion, and I just wanted to talk about that for the vocabulary material. So we also have visual vocabulary cards, and I would say that the vocabulary component of this program is very much one of its strengths. One of the things that I've enjoyed teaching the most, and since we definitely have found that there's some gaps in children's understanding of vocabulary, I do think that this program really does a great job of explicitly teaching vocabulary, and a lot of it. So within my text set, you have oral language vocabulary that goes along with the interactive read aloud. The interactive read aloud is what you start with in the very beginning of the text set. And then you also have the academic vocabulary, which is about 8 vocabulary, visual vocabulary cards. And within all of the text, that the anchor text and the shared text, which we'll talk about more, how much time we spend on that, all of the vocabulary words are highlighted. So there's a lot of opportunities to read those words and understand them in context. We use a routine called Define Example As. So basically, we're defining the word, we're giving a name for the word, and then children have to talk about it or act it out so that they can kind of relate to the word and it can become a little bit more. We use vocabulary in sentences, and then we also have in the reading writing companion, there's a sheet for every shared read where the students talk together and answer questions about the vocabulary words. We also have digital games that help with vocabulary, and they're focused on mathematics. One of them is a memory game, one of them is drawing lines in math, and on the blank. There's a lot of opportunities to teach vocabulary within this program. And each lesson for vocabulary specifically focuses on a key vocabulary strategy that they're going to continue to study throughout the year. So it could be context clues, fixes or suffixes to figure out the meaning of the word. It could be synonyms or antonyms, homophones. And I will say that in a braggy mode, the kids have really taken up the vocabulary. A story that had nothing to do with the Wonders program. Writing for a yellow bike, and about half of the path said, "Oh, he's pleading." And it was one of the very first words that we learned in September. Are using them, so I think the vocabulary is strength. In this picture here, the first thing we do is build prior knowledge, and then you'll see the essential question, which is what we lead off with in the text set. We're looking at a web that says quite literally build vocabulary, and this is something that the kids go back to as we go through the shared read. As we go through the reading writing companion, they add to that web as they gain more knowledge based on what they're reading. Nice piece. How far? We only start with a few bubbles in the beginning, and we add a lot at the end. Next slide, please. And of course, you're looking at the vocabulary. I hope the vocabulary materials. Yeah. So you're looking at the top there. This is the digital version because again, anything that is in front of you can be pushed out to kids. They have a visual here of a child. The word is aside. They have an example there, and then on the back, there's an example of define, example, ask routine. A snapshot of a digital game here, and then here is the quotable readers that also have the word aside. So again, multiple opportunities. This here is the oral language. If you look down at the bottom, this is another snapshot of the vocabulary, and a lot of the words are pretty robust. I mean, We have adventure and delighted, and then there's enjoy, but that has to do with also looking at past tense verbs. So everything is very much aligned.
Nikki,
and then
could you just get a little bit close, Nikki?
Yes.
Could you get a little bit closer to your mic? It's getting a little hard to hear you.
Yes.
Just get a little bit closer to your computer.
Let me scoot this belly. Yes, this belly is in the way. Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes. So up on the top right-hand corner, you're looking at the reading, writing companion, a snapshot of the book. And this is the shared read. You're looking at all of the prompts on the right-hand side, and then there you have the vocabulary page. So the example is to talk with a partner about each word and then answer the questions. And there's one of these for every shared read. So again, a lot of opportunities for students to use these vocabulary words. And you can go to the next slide. These are the fluency and decoding materials. I hope it's not backwards. Okay, so what you're looking at here, you have an example of the decodable reader. This is for short A and short I, talking about Pat and Tim. Along the top, you're looking at one of those differentiated genre passages. This is an on-level passage. And again, all of the differentiated genre passages are aligned, strategy and skill, to the text of the week, which is another text that the students are available to work with. I have them do this with partners. Sometimes they do it independently. Sometimes I take a small group and do this. So you're looking at the 2 pages that it would be, and then you're looking at the back of it, which is giving them opportunities to respond to the reading and answer questions. And then at the bottom is B, just that part where they're supposed to work with a partner to kind of find their fluency score after 2 consecutive reads about a minute long. I don't have them do that, but again, it is a nice thing for a teacher to be able to have them do. And again, there's also an ELL passage as well. So there's an approaching, an on, and a beyond level. This phonics and fluency practice card down at the bottom is something that we do for phonics and phonemic awareness, but this is also what we do to help with fluency. And then you have the high frequency word cards, and again, just a snapshot of the reading and writing companion and how that vocabulary is embedded inside in those highlighted words. Back to Sabrina.
Okay, and we're back. So now our last pillar that we're going to talk about this evening is comprehension. So all of the components that we've spoken about really come to a culmination in comprehension, right? So we're working on phonemes and phonics so that we can be great decoders and we can read with fluency. And we can read with fluency so that we can comprehend what we're reading. So that's the main goal in the end. Okay, so what do we have for comprehension? A ton of materials. Every week in our program, we have a weekly read aloud, and we have 2 shared reads inside of their consumable MyBook. So now here is something that came out through our conversation, which is a wonderful aha moment. Are you ready? So in their MyBooks, they are consumable, they take these home. So 2 shared reads a week, 12 modules, 24 stories we are purchasing then for our children to have home in their house that they can read again. They are full books that they will then have to keep as long as they want. Where we face a lot of children who say, I only have a few books to read at home. Well, now you will be giving them a set of 24 books to read by the end of the year. I think that's terrific. And they are very good quality literature. A lot of the books in our shared read or in our read alouds are books that, as we've had our conversations with Margaret, we've talked about how we have them in our classroom library anyway because they are just good books. Okay, so what else do we have? We have for small group instruction, we have Rigby readers, which are leveled readers, the readers that can be taught. Each reader has 3 different strategies that you can teach in that book. So a book can be read 3 different ways, and the teacher guide that goes along with that. So maybe they're reading, you could read it for author's purpose, you could read it for text organization, you could read it for the central idea. So what's great about that is when you need to go and do a strategy lesson or a skill lesson, I can say, I'm noticing through my assessments that these 4 children are struggling still with author's purpose. I can find the Rigby reader that that is tailored to teach the skill of author's purpose, I can pull that reader on their level and they can sit in front of me. So the child is truly getting the highest level of differentiated instruction. We have also, when we teach our shared reads, there are focuses. So we will have it's explicit instruction in comprehension strategies and skills. What I do love, and I was very impressed with, because it was different than the last time I did a program like this. Your shared reads, one of them you read twice. So you read it the first time and you read it for one comprehension strategy. And then you read the whole thing through. Then you go back another day and you analyze the text. You don't read the whole thing again, but you go in and you just go for certain portions, and it's truly called Analyze the Text. And you're looking through a different comprehension lens, and the children have to reflect. It's really terrific, and as you can see in the consumables, and for you at home, at the end of each shared read, there are comprehension questions, but there's a response to literature. So there is something for them to write based upon what they have read, which is what we want them to do. And we have found in our last program, we didn't have enough of that. So when we first tried this in September, I was a little nervous. I was like, oh boy, they're gonna do this, and they are doing it. We started as a whole group. We started in then small group. We did a little guided support on it. And now we have our children, majority of them can do it independently. And it's a wow for me. So I really am impressed with it. The other thing we have these fabulous anchor charts. We have intervention lessons for these comprehension strategies where you're using the anchor chart and it's giving you a guided lesson that you can use behind it. We also have something called the Read and Response Journal, which are intervention comprehension short stories. The story is shorter, and it has a comprehension question where they have to respond on each page. That is supposed to be done in small group for small group instruction. We have also our English language intervention piece where you can work on oral language, but also comprehension skills and responses in a modified way, which is really vital for anyone who needs to work on language. Then we have a ton of assessments that we can give. And I say we can give, not that we should give, and that you can't do them all. And they tell you that in the training. Of course, we have our benchmarks through the year, your beginning, middle, and end. But we also have, in your shared read, for the shared reads, we have selection quizzes, which are just quick 5 multiple choice questions. We have a weekly assessment. I just gave one actually today. It's one story and it's 5 questions, which turns out to be 6 points, and it goes over the components that we taught that week. So this week for me, it was text organization. So they had questions on text organization. It was a similar story to what they had in their shared read. And then it also goes into grammar pieces that we assess as well, because grammar is also a component of this that ties in with the writing component, which we're not covering this evening, but it's there. Then we have module assessments, which are a little bit longer, still appropriate, but a little bit longer. We do break them into maybe 2 days or 2 portions so that it doesn't tire the children and so that it's developmentally appropriate. What else is there to say? There's so much. There's just so many materials. We could go on about this all night long. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here I just wanted to give you at home a snapshot so you can see the top box to the left where it says prepare to read. That is right out of the child's My Book, their consumable book where the shared reads are. So before every story, it talks about the genre. So we are using that literary language. They're talking about the components you can expect to see in that genre. They talk about the purpose for the reading. We have to set the children up to be open to learning and why they are reading. What's the why, right? We need the buy-in from them and let them know what to expect. That is a sample page of one of our stories that we read last week, which was a really, really adorable story. On the bottom, and then the bottom right corner where it says next, more steps, thank you, it's far away. That is an example of the response to literature. That was the response prompts that went along with the story. We talk through the planning of, we talk through the ideas, and then they implement it independently if they can. On the bottom left corner, Tortoise gets a home. That's an example of our read and response journal, which is our intervention component for comprehension. And then also in the middle as well, that's our tabletop lessons. That's a sample of one of our anchor charts on making inferences. And that's the back, which is the teacher's support for when you teach that intervention lesson. All right, Nikki, it's your turn.
So if you go to slide 16, basically for Wonders, they follow this close reading routine, which is read, reread, and then integrate. There's multiple genres and a lot of text for comprehension and so many opportunities. We do it every single day. We do daily, independent, and collaborative work. There's center activity cards that are directly aligned with the comprehension skill and the strategy. I have anchor charts in parentheses here because if you have a center card, I think the one that we brought tonight is Visualize. Those are their anchor charts. And then if you flip it to the back, those are their center activity cards. So they have a reference for whatever strategy or skill they're working on. And then they can go ahead and choose one of those activities to do in a center. And it's nice because if you have, other strategies or skills, that you can always use those as center activities, but it is difficult. It was definitely difficult in the very beginning of the year. And also I take those center activity cards and I make a larger anchor chart so that everybody has a reference versus just the person or children or group who are doing the center activity. I'll head on the right, you'll see all the materials. So like I mentioned, there's 6 units with 3 text sets per unit, and they go 2 weeks at a time. And so I'll talk a little bit about the lesson map, how it's supposed to work. But we start with an essential question always. We start with an interactive read aloud where we're looking at the oral language, the oral vocabulary within that. There's a shared read that's in the student consumable, which they call the Reading Writing Companion. And then they have an anchor text and paired selections in the anthology. The anthology is that big, thick book for Wonders, and it has a lot of really great stories in there. I do love the stories. The kids really enjoy the stories. You have leveled readers that you can use for small group instruction, and it also is aligned with the text sets for the week. So if we're doing Visualize, that means that their strategy is Visualize in this leveled readers. All of those also come with graphic organizers that the students use as well. And then you have genre passages like you saw that also have the opportunity for reading responses. And then there's make connection text when you get to the integrate part. There's a culminating show your knowledge task that you can do at the end of every unit or at the end of every text set, I should say. And then also there's formative and summative assessments. There are a lot of assessments in Wonders. Many, many assessments. Where to begin? So every text set, there's every 2 weeks, there's a progress monitoring assessment. I did not bring the book, but essentially it is passages, and then you have comprehension questions. And that's every 2 weeks. So we do 2 weeks progress monitoring, 2 weeks progress monitoring, and then based on that data, you can go ahead and revisit any of the strategies or skills or any of the content areas that students seem to not understand or master. That's where you can also take your small group and kind of go over that again, which is nice. At the end of the unit, which is the 6 weeks, there is a very, very heavy unit assessment. And if you have the Wonders materials, you can look at that unit assessment book. It's like 32 pages long. It's multiple passages. So it's a little bit heavy. And I wouldn't say necessarily appropriate, but it's modeled after a state test, which is nice. I think the kids have gotten more used to working with me now, the format of the questions, and how to properly mark up and find text evidence within any of those passages, because we practice every single day in our Reading Writing Companion, going back into the story and answering questions. So there's always a constant check for comprehension. And there are also digital games that have to do with comprehension. And with the anchor text that we spend time with, there's also comprehension quizzes, which I found online. Again, all of the things that you're looking at can also be pushed out to the students digitally in any way. So like I mentioned, there's always a comprehension strategy or skill of the text set. There's a huge emphasis on finding and citing text evidence, which was very scary in September when we opened up our beautiful consumable and it told children to go into paragraphs 1 and 2 and go and find and circle and underline. And someone said, "What's a paragraph?" So we had to kind of reel it back a little bit and kind of talk about a paragraph. But now it's become second nature to the kids, and they have definitely gotten used to it. And it's like a game where you have to find something that answers the question. So they're pretty eager to go back in and show what they know. There are also multiple opportunities for students to write and respond to the reading, which is nice. And if there is, based on your assessments, students who are struggling with a particular strategy or skill, there is a Tier 2 intervention piece. I don't have the book, but it is available online. So I didn't get a chance to add it to the slide where you're going to see the materials next. But for example, if there's author's purpose, a student who's struggling with author's purpose, you can take them in a small group. It has a lesson for the teacher that follows the gradual release framework. And then you have a reproducible for the student to continue to work on that particular skill. So there are a lot of differentiated opportunities here. The close reading routine, when I say read, reread, and integrate, if I take you through a map. So in the beginning, we start with the shared read. It's really just a first read through where you're really taking a look at the text and kind of just looking at it in a literal sense. What is the literal meaning of the text? Can you tell me what happened after this happened? But then you do the second day, which is where you reread it. And that's really looking at the author's craft and the purpose. And you're looking at the comprehension strategy more closely, and then you're also responding to the reading more. You're doing the prompts, and there's a lot of opportunity for partner work here because there's a couple of icons, if you look in the reading writing companion, that ask you to collaborate, and kids know that means they need to be talking with each other about the text. So that's day 1 and day 2. Then you have days 3 through 6, where you dive into that big anthology with the anchor text. And 3 and 4 are really just read-throughs because those anchor texts are very long. They take a long time to get through. So we take 2 days to read those. We connect that to the essential question. We respond to the text. And then day 5 and day 6 are your rereads of that anchor text. And then you're going into the reading writing companion. So you kind of have both books, but the kids are going back into the anchor text and they're answering questions about that story in their reading writing companion. Again, all aligned to the comprehension strategy and the skill of the week. We have a lot of different genres, which is really nice. I know Sabrina mentioned that it's not just fiction and nonfiction anymore. So to date, we've had realistic fiction is what we started with. We've done fables, we've done poetry, we've done expository texts, we've done fiction, we've done fantasy. So if you were to come into my room, you would see a lot of genre webs with the characteristics of all these genres, and they like the different kinds of stories. They come in and they look at my focus wall and they see, oh, we're doing narrative nonfiction, and it's exciting. And it seems like a lot, but they do always come back again, which is nice. So they do get a lot of exposure to different genres throughout this, which is very different than what they're used to. Going back to the lesson map really quickly, there's also day 7 and day 8, which is when we're looking at reading and rereading a paired selection that's also in the anthology. It could be a completely different genre, but in some way it's connected to the other story, or it's always connected to the essential question. So then you're looking at that and you're kind of integrating that with the essential question. Then day 9, they're making connections between the two texts. How are they alike? How are they different? And again, doing that work in their reading writing companion. Day 10 is like an assessment day. That's where we're going to do our progress monitoring. And again, you're assessing them on all of the things that they've done over the last 10 days. And it's really nice to see. In the beginning, it was horrifying, but it has gotten a lot better because they've gotten used to the format of the assessment, and they're used to now how we've been teaching it and how this is what they're going to be assessed on, whether or not they've mastered at the end of that 10-day cycle. I mentioned the Tier 2 interventions already, and the center activity card. So also a lot of opportunities for center work, group work, partner work. So it runs the gamut of the comprehension. And then if you go to the materials, you can go to the next slide. In my version, I put the an example of the Tier 2 intervention. It's not there, but I can always add it after the fact. That blue box there is an opportunity just of all the text. So you're looking at a page in my teaching edition where you have the independent reading text. We have the leveled readers. There's a classroom library that's available with this. And then they have additional literature within the anthology. Again, all of the texts and materials that the kids have, you can push out to them online, which is nice. And then you have an example of the center activity cards, all of the strategies and skills that they're going to see. You're looking at the anchor text, and then at the back, there would be some activities for them to do, either in small group or independently. Then you have a picture there of the games. And the games, the ones that have that blue triangle in the top left corner, collect data. So the kids are having a fun, but then those games are actually collecting data to see, have you mastered whatever strategy or skill that I'm assessing you on here. You have, again, a snapshot of the decodable reader in the, I'm sorry, that's the leveled reader in the middle here. And then if you look on the bottom, that's the back of the leveled reader at the very end where it's respond to reading. So I'd love to use these in small groups because they are summarizing. They have a black and white notebook that they use for this. And then you have right there text evidence. So they're always able to go back into the text and answer questions about the text they read. And there's a paired text that goes with it as well. This is a real snapshot of what we do when I push the reading writing companion out to the kids. This is how we mark up our texts, which you'll see all the prompts on the side that are asking them questions. And it says right at the top, find text evidence. So we're circling, we're underlining, we're numbering paragraphs, and students are expected to go back in and find the answers to the question to support their thinking. And then you have another snapshot of, from the reading writing companion, the student consumable, every shared read has an opportunity to respond to the reading. So there's always a prompt, and that's just an example of how we might want students to answer that question based on the story, Maria Celebrates Brazil. There's boxes on the side that give them sentence starters and tips and reminders for grammar and making sure that they use proper mechanics when they're writing as well. So a lot of opportunities to interact with many different texts on many different levels, embedded throughout the text sets, embedded throughout the entire unit.
Thank you, Nikki. Can you hear us? Okay, so I think you get the picture that there is a lot of work going on right now with these two programs. I want to thank Janine because she organized for us the other day a vertical meeting with both teams, K-5. We were downstairs at district office. They sat with their pilot. They went through a series of questions that Janine designed, both from the Science of Reading people, the Reading League, and also from a group called Knowledge Matters, so that we touched on both foundational skills and comprehension in our review. After we went through the protocol that Janine put together, then we sat together and we looked at each other's work and questioned each other about the strengths and the needs in each program.
Hear anything that's going on in there.
Text.
Hear each
Yes.
other.
So we will continue to do this. I've been in classrooms for short snippets of lessons. I have been in classrooms for the full workshop. Nikki hosted me for second grade. We've had team meetings. We've had meetings together. The ladies asked me the other day to do the vertical meeting one more time before the February break. And then we hope to bring all of our colleagues together on the February grade level meeting to have a full, kind of like we do as the board, have the discussion in public. I'd like them to have the discussion in front of their colleagues. All of our colleagues have been invited into classrooms. Materials have been shared with people who are not piloting. Monday is an early release day. That is the focus of the work at all 3 elementary schools. So there will be activities planned where people can ask questions, people can see student work. A couple of teachers have videotaped lessons to share with their colleagues who couldn't get into the classroom physically. We're really trying hard to have as much participation before we're ready to make a decision. I think you could hear tonight that these two programs are not that dissimilar, and so it makes the decision even more challenging because of that. While it's a good thing, it's also not such a good thing in terms of teasing out what we're concerned about and what we think we can fill in should we purchase one versus the other. So I want to thank Janine and I want to thank Nikki for being with us virtually, and I want to thank Sabrina for making herself available tonight. I know we have 2 board presentations, so I also know you probably have questions, so how would you like to manage this?
Let's try to be super
organized about it, go around. If there's anything that's like super in-depth, let's ask for maybe Margaret and the teachers to come back with those answers. So, is that cool? We'll just take a couple minutes.
That's fine.
Who would like to
She can start. Somebody might ask me a question.
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody gets me. I had to turn it on.
I think it's on.
Can you hear me? Nope. No. Come on, Amelia. I'm not a tech person.
Do you do that with your smart boys?
I do. I fully admit I am not a tech person. Can you hear me now? Oh, perfect. So you answered some of my questions already, because I was going to just ask one where you were deciding, are you going to expand the pilot to other teachers, the cost per year, and this is stuff that you don't have to answer now. I guess when you're having that February meeting.
Yep.
Other things I just wanted to know to maybe think about as we're making a decision. I know that they all had that tech or digital assessment. Do they both have digital assessment with typing, like for the short answer? And then how are you getting the data from those assessments? Do you get it by standard, by question, by student, and all? Like, and I'm assuming both then.
Yes.
Do that.
Yes.
Are both of them next gen aligned?
Yes.
Okay. And then I guess
New York
it's the
State
new
standards.
It's the new standards they just are coming out with. Creating maybe a pro-con list.
We started to do that the other day, yes.
And then is there one thing that one of the programs has that the other one doesn't?
I don't know if there's one thing.
I'm just trying to find, because they did sound very similar, so I was just trying to think if there's something that's like maybe one program then has.
I don't think there's one thing that one has and the other one doesn't have at all. I think it's like everything's done a little differently. Like in Nikki's program in Wonders, they have that thick anthology, right? Those are anchor texts. She doesn't have read alouds the way I do. So my read alouds, like there's some trade-offs, I guess, different representation of how things are done. I know Nikki will tell you that they talk about differentiated spelling. We have differentiated spelling. It's done a little differently. But so far, I don't think we came out with that from the other day. It's more of the way the materials are, usage, ease.
Right.
Yes.
And then I think from looking, I was trying to look at the books. They both have like diversity of text, correct? Like
Yes,
the
we
culturally
talked
responsive
about
the
that,
kids are.
absolutely.
Okay.
You know, do kids see themselves in the text? Are they culturally diverse?
Then I say good luck. I'm glad it's not my decision and that it is yours.
Thank you.
I was just trying to help you narrow stuff down.
Yeah.
So how do you make your decision? What is the next step? Well, you meet in February, and how does the staff make their decision, or for you to make?
I don't want us to vote. Instead, I'd like us to have a collaborative conversation. I think as the outside observer, while I'm watching the work, and the other day when I was listening in to both sets of conversations, I could tell you that I think I see where we're leaning based on them talking to each other. Again, there's nothing that's missing in either program. It's a question of what's easier to use, what's more manageable, what's more challenging. You know, the digital piece in one might be a little trickier to manipulate than it might be in the other program. So it is challenging because you can't say, well, it's definitely, you know, I've done this before in another district and people came back and said, absolutely not that one. We don't have that situation. But you know, again, watching them from the outside, I think I can see where we're talking each other into something for the right reasons.
I had one more thing I just wanted you guys to think about. I'm sorry. Professional development. Because I know sometimes the people who are selling you the product are really great, and then once they sell you the product, the PDs are not great. So you guys have gotten PDs
Well,
already?
I will say this. Unfortunately, one of the companies has potentially the worst customer service that I have ever seen in my life.
It's a red flag.
but their PD has been good. And they have supports online, so I have experienced that, not the teachers. So it's a question of us getting things ordered, getting things delivered that were promised, but not the PD piece of it, which they've had some fabulous experiences. There's a good social network of teachers using this that help each other.
And then the other thing was, how does this roll from, is there anything that moves us from elementary school to secondary?
There is, both programs have a middle school extension, if that's what you're asking. One does, yeah.
Yeah, it too has a 612. So, and remember, digitally we can access outside of our grade level.
Right, that's a very good advantage to have.
Both can?
Currently, yes, but when we started, when we started Into Reading, we always had access K5 or K6, so you could access everything. Wonders did not start that way, so they went back to their rep and asked, and they finally just got it turned on a couple of weeks ago. So the question we were asking was, is that because we're piloting and we asked, or when you purchase it, will everybody get that? So that's the only part, a nuance we don't know yet.
So no question, but I do want to say I greatly appreciate that we're talking about instruction.
Us too.
First of all, I want to thank all of the staff for doing this work. I feel terribly for the kids that are not getting this right now, to be honest. Because one of my questions is, where are you seeing the most gains?
Well, I can tell you that everyone is very excited that the winter benchmark opens on Monday, because they are very curious to see if what they think they're seeing translates into improvement that is measurable.
Right.
So that I can tell you is across the board. I'll tell you, Erica, what I think, again, as an outside observer watching their work. I see a tremendous focus on vocabulary. And I see kids who are using that vocabulary correctly outside of the reading that they're doing. And I've told this to all of the team. I absolutely love the focus on genre. I think kids have to understand the structure of different types of writing and reading. It allows you as a reader to flip a switch in your head when you know that what you're about to read is a fable. Your brain says, oh, I should be looking for these types of elements. So it's an advantage for kids to understand and differentiate across the genre. And that was the first thing I think I noticed in all my visits, was that was a very evident piece that was being discussed with the children and was being modeled by the teacher. I will tell you also, because if we go back to PD, one of the things we have to do is not just have, obviously, PD for the teachers who have to implement this program, but we need PD for the administrators who have to supervise. So I need my principals to understand, what am I looking for? What should I be seeing when I go into Sabrina's room? So one of the things I've loved visiting all of them is both programs have something called a focus wall. So when you walk in, there is a huge display of what is being studied in that unit, and it will give us the spelling pattern that they're looking at. It will tell us what the genre is, what the essential question is. So that's really helpful for me to visit. It helps me to understand what's coming when I'm listening to the children talk, and it also allows me to ask them questions because I'm staying in tune with where they are.
Do you have a feeling yet of which one might be easier to implement for the staff?
I think that's a pretty personal question. Some of us are more adept with technology than others, so I can tell you some piloteers have been slightly challenged by some of the online pieces, and others are pros at it. I don't know that I think that's pretty individualized. I think if we switched it up, you would find different responses. So I expect that there will be some people who will be overwhelmed by the volume of the program, and then all the components, and other people will take it and digest and move forward. And then, of course, we have all of these wonderful people to support them.
Right.
It took months. I do have to say this. It took months for us to get this comfortable, and I'm not all the way there yet, but it was very overwhelming. So with whichever program we choose, Nikki and I worked very closely together. We collaborated for years, and with this, she would invite me in. We look at her manual, coming into mine, looking at my manual. What do you think we should do here? How does the flow work? So both of them have great components. Both of them have a lot of similar pieces. It is a lot about style. It's a lot about preference. But it is overwhelming. All of our teachers will most likely feel a little overwhelmed in the beginning, which is what happens every time we take on a new curriculum. We had the same experience last year when we took on the math that was new to us. But the more you do it, by the second module, I felt like I had my footing. And I understand the routines, and so did the children. So I think next year we're going to see such a shift. And something else I see, which is very big, is a response to literature. The ability to respond and go in. Now they understand to go in, find the detail, and we're going to use it in our sentences. I think that's big because we weren't able to do that. So.
And can this replace anything we're currently using? Like, do we have to have words their way?
Oh, no. I don't think they'll be happy when I tell them what it's going to replace. Because this is a very expensive purchase, and it's very all-encompassing.
And also our assessment tools, because we don't want to over-assess kids. Is there a way that we can assess them differently, utilizing what we're spending?
So the assessment tools, that's been an interesting conversation, because a lot of people throw running records under the bus. Both tools come with running records. I actually had somebody the other day say to me that they liked the F&P better than the running record that I think they have the IRI in Wonders. When we choose, we'll sit down and we'll go through the package and not only lay out for teachers, this is what you're doing. The other stuff you can put aside and use for progress monitoring or for your own benefit, but these will be the benchmarks, so to speak. We also have to think about, we don't need words their way. We don't need foundations. We potentially might not need the iReady lessons in ELA because they both have that component built into the program. So there are a lot of things that will be swooped up in the purchase.
Okay, that's good. The other question I have is just about the timeline and the decision making, but they kind of touched on that. And then I guess you'll be coming back to make a recommendation to us once you get there.
Yep.
So good luck with that. And you're presenting to the curriculum committee.
Yes, they have a presentation, not necessarily Sabrina and Nikki. It's Janine and Danielle Cohen and Jessica Anderson, I think, are the ones that are presenting. I can't remember. If I'm leaving somebody else out, I apologize.
All right, thank you so much.
I just want to thank the teachers and the district for being ahead of the governor's decision to incorporate the science of reading in the ELA curriculum. I know that the teachers, you're going to be listening to their feedback on what program you pick. Sure. I was wondering if we can also maybe get some feedback from the parents and the students. Because I'm looking through these materials as a parent, and how I'm super jealous that my son didn't get this. And the other thing I wanted to look at when you are making your decision, which program is most likely to remain relevant long term, since it's going to be such a big outlay of funds. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Tamika.
They already asked all my questions, but I just wanted to say I love this. My son is actually in the Wonders, and amazing, amazing. I'm so happy for this. I can't wait until all the elementary kids can actually do what they're doing right now, honestly.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Steve.
Well, thank you to Dr. Ruller and the team for putting together the presentation that is helping to explain a lot of work that's going on in the classrooms. A pilot is never easy, and the decision when you do have multiple programs is never easy as well. So it's good work. It's, as you can see, the process that Dr. Ruller has laid out and the team is supporting is really taking a deep dive into how one of these programs can best support our students. So thank you for that work and thank you for the presentation. We'll continue on with our work session as soon as we, thank you, Carmen. We're continuing on to our work session. The next presentation is the beginning of a continuation of our budget development process, but we will explore two main components of our budget. Other than salaries, often the largest expenditure areas are the special ed and technology components. And Carmen, there should be a presentation that has.
Shared. Want me to reshare it?
Yes, please. There's a newer version that was.
Mike shared one mid.
So while we're pulling up the presentation, just a reflection on where we've been in this process. In late December, thank you, Carmen. In late December, we had Enrique Catalan and an external auditor, Don Hoffman, do some updates on where the district's financials currently stood and also long-term projections. So to give the board some context and some considerations as they gave the administration parameters to help build this budget. Thank you, Carmen. If we go to our last board meeting, we had Enrique provide us with further context into some of those details that are helping or causing us to shape our budget in a particular way, such as not only those long-term projections, but also some major budget drivers and some other factors to help us get to where we want to be for a community vote on the budget in late May. So to just remind the board, this is a budget development process. What we're presenting to you tonight, all the way up until the board adopts the budget in March 27th, is a developing story that we are having with input from you and from other factors that influence budget, such as legislative parameters. If you compare where we are in the superintendent's budget, if you looked at, or if you're paying attention to the news, Governor Hochul had just released her budget for the state, and that is not the finalized project. It is akin to the superintendent's budget. Governor Hochul's proposed budget, through discussion and legislative negotiations and further refinement, will eventually become an adopted budget by the state of New York to implement and fund the state for the next fiscal year. In a similar process, we're starting with our superintendent's budget. The board will adopt a budget that they can come to agreement on the 27th of March. And from that time until the 20th of May, that will be the proposed budget that we will present to the community for their input when they do vote on May 21st. As a reminder, community, we're sharing with you line items. We're sharing with you specific details that we are using to develop an overall total budget that the community amount will vote on. That is for transparency purposes. That is so you can see if there's a figure that is $88 million, presentations such as this that give you a large global context of various codes, but also the line-by-line budget review on March 2nd will give you our thoughts on what will make up that total proposed budget. The formats that you'll see over, if we go to the next slide, the formats that you'll see from our presenters, led tonight by Lisa Shookman and Benita Joy, we've asked them to provide brief backgrounds to you on their program or their department. We have also asked them to provide you information with what they are doing with last year's adopted and approved funds. They then will go into any recommendations they have or ideas they have that will help shape the actual dollar amounts that they're putting into their budget for the 24-25 budget. So if you think of it, we're bragging about what we're doing for students with last year's funds, or showing the community what they're getting for last year's budget, and we're requesting funds for next year's budget through some advancements or improvements, or in some cases, if there's a state mandate that we need to address, you may see that included in there as well. And if we continue in this format, over the years, you'll see a developing story from year to year of how we are using the budget funds to help improve our programs and provide the best teaching and learning environment for our students. These will be high-level overviews of our non-salary codes. Non-salary codes in particular, if you want to think about this, we are still making a lot of decisions about our program. I'm going to ask you as the board to, after we go through this presentation, have a discussion and provide us feedback. Our instructional program will shape our staffing. So if we're presenting you with instructional program considerations, or if we're still making changes to our instructional program, we can't tell you specifically what staffing we need that in all instances in a clear way, because we are still refining that program part of the budget. So that's why we're focused on these evening presentations on program expenses. There will be one exception, as there is to everything, in our pupil personnel services presentation. Because of the funding source for those programs, you will see a little bit more detail in terms of staffing. But also, when we established the budget parameters with you as the board, there was a parameter in there specifically tied to bringing in a special education program that we felt strongly that we needed, so you'll see that. After this entire presentation, we will ask you for your input that we need to consider as we go back to the drawing board, or if we take out our fine-tooth pencil or eraser to try to tweak our budget to a program, to a proposed budget that you feel you can support with the community. And just a reminder of our budget parameters that we are working off of as we have conversations throughout this process, because we don't just come here and present to you numbers. We go back to our administrative team, to our departments, and we talk about input that we've received from you. We talk about changes to variables that impact how we build a budget, such as changes in the tax cap or state mandates or state developments. So these, as you see on the screen, are the parameters that we are working to build our budget around, and that is why the presentations are shaped the way they are within these parameters. So at this point in time, the board is asking us not to exceed this tax cap. Whenever possible, preserve program. We're looking at our secondary schedules to make sure that they are the most efficient. We're looking to maintain and expand a pre-K program through outside providers, and we're looking at bringing on a special education program to support the needs of our students. These are subject to change through our discussions. So we are operating at this point in time within these parameters, but we also know you may tell us that you'd like us to change direction based upon what you were receiving. So without further ado, I will stop talking and turn it over to the two presenters who are much more engaging than I am. Ms. Lisa Shookman will go first to talk about the special ed component of the program. Yes.
Just grab this because it has a chart.
I don't know if we want to turn the camera also to the podium.
Good evening. Is this on? Good evening, everyone. So I get the privilege to talk to you about PPS. PPS is just not special education. It's a lot of different things in our district. But before I start, I want to introduce my two assistants. I have Chris Marino, who does secondary, and Ellen Gargiulo, who does elementary and CPSE. So they're here. We've done a lot with this budget and really trying to keep our kids in district, and how can we do that? Basically following the mission to make sure that every student is engaged and passionate. That's the first question when they come to me and ask me for more money. I always say, what will it do for the kids? Because that's why we're here. Well, how does it benefit them, and what would be the value added for our programs? Go ahead, Carmen. So in 23-24, we really talked about a few different programs. Mike uses his military slang, and I'm still learning it. Like he's like, it's Delta D or I don't know what it means. But anyways, our anchor program at the high school we started this year for our highly functioning neurodivergent students who just were not fitting into the high school. Were really, I feel like I'm so far away from you and I'm looking through stuff to see you. So we started this program because we had so many kids that were not fitting in. They were falling through the cracks. So we have started a program, and it didn't cost us anything. We just moved some teachers around and started this program at the high school. We currently have 8 to 10 students in this program, and they're blossoming. We have a psychologist assigned to it, along with a speech therapist. They do a lot of social group and social development skills. It's been fabulous. At the middle school, we expanded the 7th grade SAIL program. We've also brought in a K-12 psychiatrist consultation, and I have never met a psychiatrist like this lady. She's fabulous. I talked to her about coming on a day and a half next year to be in the district to help us with our families. Do you mind if I just move, or do I have to stand right here? Because I just can't see everybody, and everybody's going like this. So I think that has been a huge game changer for a lot of our families, even before they get to the CSE process. Our teachers have done a lot of professional learning, especially in the elementary level. They've taken on Writing Revolution. They've trained. I sent 4 people to train last year. So every one of the elementary schools and the middle school have a trainer. They went and got trained, and they have come back in turnkey. Today was day 3 of training, and what we've seen at the elementary for handwriting and writing actual papers is amazing. So I pushed Margaret for this too, but she was also doing a pilot. So we're really waiting on training all the gen ed teachers. But it's something that has really worked. They've done book studies. They did all that on their own last year. They begged me for training. I said, go. And they've turnkeyed the training and have done fabulous things. Next slide. Oh, we already did it. 24-25, what we're looking to do is to continue with the teacher materials and supplies. I provide them with very unique things that the buildings can't afford. So if it's a specialized desk, a specialized table, I found tables before I came here that were write-on and write-off tables. So they can write on the tables while they're doing math and spelling. So every year someone needs a new one because theirs has just worn out. It's been 5 or 6 years. So big things like that I provide. We want to continue with all of our reading support and sending people out for training. We have a new high school English teacher who took the place of all those programs from somebody that left. We are looking for, again, flexible seating. Everybody's calling me, do you have standing desks? Do you have movables? Do you have this? So we make sure we have some in stock because we provide it for everybody. Anybody that needs it, we make sure we provide. And then our specialized materials and equipment for our ABC students and Sailor students. One of the things that the elementary task force had brought up is the playground equipment at Furnace Woods. We think we're fine at Frank G. We have had that equipment. So we're looking at the OT, PT, and I are looking at the programs that will be at the building and what playground equipment they may need. So that's what we're looking at for next year. So that's where my equipment money will go. And our request and additions for this upcoming year, I have 2 programs. We may only be able to run 1 depending on the budget, but that's okay. We can build to that. A therapeutic program this year alone, 3 elementary students went to a therapeutic program that we didn't anticipate. I sent 2 high school students to a therapeutic program. So if we had our own program in-house, we could figure that out, and that's why we need the psychiatrist on top of that. Or do we do a program that's similar to address the school avoidance and somehow bring the psychiatric piece into it, which we could do. Chris and I went to look at a program at Croton Thursday, and that's a really good program, and that's what we're looking to do. Again, it's going to really depend on budgetary and where we see the most bang for our buck. Will it be a 7-12 program? Will it be a 6-8 program? We have to look at those kids that are coming. We're finding more and more need for the psychiatric help for all of our kids. Kids that are classified, kids that are not classified. And the program to address the school avoidance / flex program is what we're calling, would be for any kid, not just a special ed kid. We do need, ooh, you've been a little quick, Carm. We do need an additional ABC class since we're going K2. Right now we have students, both classes, we have a variance for both classes. So we have 7 in one, that's a 6, and then the other one we have 9 and it's an 8. We had some kids move in. So that being said, we are already anticipating at least 4 of our own coming in next year. We should open another class. So that's a definite. And then an additional psychologist. We have gotten a plethora of parent referrals for CSE. I'm talking 15 for elementary alone since September. That's huge. That's probably how many kids we get a year. And the high school, middle school, we've probably gotten 4 or 5. That being said, we need another psychologist that can help out with our testing. And just an example, they sent me more pictures from today's PD, and they were awesome pictures. And I'm like, I can't do it now, but this is just an example of PD. I think it's Kimberly Valerati running it at the front. One of our brand new teachers, Lauren Siegel, is running it. You know, we are so proud that they took this on. This is a lot of work, and the teachers are so respected and have really put a lot of time and effort into it. And they even get in their little groups after school and work together to even further it. So, as Mike said, I am responsible for salaries for HHEA, administration, HHESA, and TAMA. So you can see year to date, we're already over what we budgeted for last year, and we went up for next year. That's the salary cost. That's the additional OTPT and psychologist, and the 2 TAs. I'm not going to read this to you. I'm just going to kind of talk about the equipment. The equipment code, we did go down $1,000. We usually budget $25. Right now we're at $30 because we got some last minute high cost needs. We just had a student move in and I had to buy a wheelchair, a toilet cover, a walker. So there's a lot of things I needed for that student. Materials and supplies, we went down a few thousand. Again, I do provide a lot for K-12, plus all the assistive technology. So Phonak is your hearing supplies. One student can be $5,000 or $6,000. And every year you either have to update it, it does go out for repair, and if it doesn't pass repair, I have to then get a quote for a whole new FM system or hearing system. Contractual expenses really went up this year because Enrique did me a favor and gave me all the RNs, the substitutes, anybody that goes on a field trip, they come to me. I mean, he does help me fund it, but because the nurses do fall under me. We do not have a 6th nurse this year, which I've heard from many parents and nurses, but we are still working on the director of nursing, and it's been 8 months since we've heard from civil service. Hospital tutoring, as I said, we have more students going into the hospital, but we're right about 50,000 now, and I think we're going to plateau with that. Tuition, that's a code that was like a phantom code that I don't know whatever happened, but we zeroed that out. Go ahead, Carl.
Lisa, before you move on,
Yeah.
just, sorry to interrupt. We will update this slide and make sure when we post it, we'll post it on board docs with the totals at the bottom.
Oh, the totals aren't in here?
They are. It's on the next slide.
In the next one.
I have the totals. They're at the bottom. The next slide.
Fantastic. I apologize.
Related service contractors, we've had, this not only is related services, but if I don't have a sub for a nurse or for a, like right now I have a nurse, a speech person, that's long-term. So they come through BOCES, so that's why that cost is so high. So I'm paying, right now we're paying a speech therapist until June, because our person took off till June, and I have another person out on maternity. So they'll be back in April. So that number is high compared to what I normally do. But again, I'm getting all the nurses and everything like that to go through my budget too. Tuition for public schools went down quite a bit. We have one student left in a public school other than in Pleasantville. This will be her last year. Next year will be her last year. Private schools, you can see we've doubled. And someone asked me why we doubled. It is time to do something that I've never wanted to do, and we may have to place a child in residential. Residential is an expensive venture to take. The kid is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mostly they do not come home on holidays. If the parent cannot go get the student, we have to transport by our own school. Plus there's this fund that you have to pay in Westchester, which is hysterical. I don't know why. It's something to do with the county fees. So I have a feeling we're going to end up putting 1, if not 2 students in residential next year. And it's not a cheap fee. It's just not cheap. I mean, the highest we would probably pay is $350,000 a year.
Per student?
Per student. Remember, that's 24-hour care, living, food, everything we pay for. Our BOCES program, again, I put some kids in BOCES that were not intended to go out, but they just couldn't make it in our school. Related service costs, again, those come with our tuition students. So on top of the tuition cost, you also have to pay individual OT, PT, speech, visually impaired, hearing, our kids hear and hearing. That all comes through that fund. And transportation, I'm not really sure why it's so low year to date, because our kids have taken a lot of trips. Christina has them in the community every day, multiple times a day. So I'm assuming Liz has not sent us all the bills yet. She usually waits till about May or June before I start to get notices. So my total this year, we anticipated $12,677,231. We currently are at $12,336,312. And next year we budget $14,733,960. And then my last slide, actually it's not my last slide. This is up top left, we're Hendrick Hudson Free Library. They gave volunteer presidential awards. So each one of the young ladies is actually holding something from President Biden. And the bottom right is a student who is relaxing in our anchor program. So our actual versus budget, so the increases are salaries. I can't control contractuals, I can't control BOCES. They go up on an average of 2 to 4% each year. The postal machine is killing us because, as you know, every IEP, we have 374 between IEPs and 504s, have to go out every year, a minimum of 1 time a year. And then anytime you have a meeting, it goes out with the protocols, and the protocols are about this thick. So I have asked Vanitha today, there's a couple secure portals through Frontline as our IEP service or Infinite Campus to see if we can start sending them that way. So every kid would get their own right to their inbox. So we're hoping that might be able to do something. Just the related services, the more kids that we're seeing, you know, they're a little bit needier, and it's okay because we do need to help them. And if we can decrease, that's great. An increase in staff, we talked about the school avoiding or struggling students, a need for a new psychologist due to testing, and a need for an OT provider for the increase that we have at school. And I think that's it. And then, of course, these are our Sailor kids delivering to the district office. Their dogs their way, their school-based enterprise. And they use that money to take their community-based trips or to make more dog treats.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
We will have a moment for questions after Vanitha Joy presents her technology proposed budget. So Vanitha, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm always excited to present the technology budget because I get to brag about my team, and then I get to ask you what more bragging I want to do next year. So thank you. So our department is actually a support department. So our main function is to support the staff and the students and the community. So everything that we do is for our students, and we're grounded in our mission work. So the next slide is about, I wanted to say a little bit about the background, but I won't go through all of them. Sometimes when people talk about technology, they think of us as the help desk people, the break fixers. So I wanted to put it out there, what are some of the things that we do in the district. Next slide. And I always give an overview of the help desk tickets that comes into the district. So you can see from 2021, 21-22, and 22-23, and currently up to last week, how many help desk tickets are coming into our system. It does increase from year to year because, as I mentioned a couple of years ago when I started here, we do drive everything through technology. There's no more emailing us and we'll get back to you kind of thing. Like I always tell my guys, make sure they put in a help desk ticket. So everything that we do pretty much goes through the help desk ticket. And also we try to make our first response to be within the 24-hour window. So some of the highlights that we did this year. The first around Strategic Plan Pillar 2, real world experiences. We've been working on the computer science and digital fluency standards at our K-5 building. We'll be celebrating our second STEAM Innovation Day on March 23rd. Our student help desk through the high school Sailor program is continuing. And our summer internship, we had 4 interns that worked with us last year as well. This program is kind of, first I had to kind of recruit them and I asked for people to send students our way. Now it's kind of doing it on its own. So we have students and parents who reach out to us asking if they can help out in the technology department. So that's kind of a prerequisite for coming into the summer intern program. We are doing the job shadowing for the first time starting this Monday. We are also applying for the Dell Student Tech Crew program, which I just found out about a month ago. We are applying for that program, so that might be one of the other prerequisite for our students before they start working. Strategic plan pillar 3, we worked on Parent Square, which is completely launched. We do have good participation from parents on that. We still have parents who needs to join and activate their account, but we are communicating everything through Parent Square. Our district website is almost ready. We had a stakeholder meeting yesterday that we're going to be sending it out to each building to beef up some of the sections within their building before we launch it. Also, we did a lot of work around Microsoft Translator, which is actually being used in a lot of the classrooms where we have non-English English-speaking students. So that's been helping the teachers as well. I won't go too deep into our security improvements. A lot of these things that I did included in the board weekly report. These are some of the things that we have implemented as far as security goes in the district. Automation and integration. As I said before, we always make sure our students and teachers are in or forefront when we start talking about how do we make everything seamless and easy for teachers to access. So we did finish our integration with TransFinder Pro this year at the beginning of the year. So now as students are registered into the district, if they are enrolled in a building, that same evening, TransFinder is updated with that information so they can start routing the student. OneSync staff and student creation. Last year, I mentioned that we finished the student account creation. So when a student comes into the building before noon, if it's the registration is done, within the same day, their account is created. They already know what the account is. If it's afternoon, it's the next day they will know what account that they have. So there's no more of calling technology, say, what's the student username and password so they can log in. And that used to take weeks at some point. So right now we finished that with the staff. So when the staff is board approved, we pull the information from our HR system. It's automated, so their account is created, so they're ready to go. ClassLink Launchpad, we continue to integrate anything that we use in the district into the Launchpad. So it's a single sign-on and rostered, so the teachers will always have new students coming in as rostered into their program. And also it's single sign-on for our students because they forget all their passwords all the time. So we will be working on Infinite Canvas SSO, single sign-on this year. So our students in Infinite Canvas, they have their login. Currently, it's like their student ID and a password, but we will be integrating that through either Google or our Active Directory, so that would be easy for them to do as well, because we did get a request from the middle school saying they want the students to be more accountable when the grades go up and report cards go up, but they always forget their password, so they can't log in. So that's something that we're going to be working on. Backup and redundancy. So Google, I don't know if you guys knew it or not, Google is not automatically backed up. It's only good for like 30 days. If you deleted something in 30 days, after the 30 days it's gone. So we right now just started the backup for Google. When I created the presentation, we just started a kickoff call for that. So at this time, as of this morning, we are now backing up Google into a program called SysCloud. Our infrastructure upgrades. So our team is always working. So during the holidays, we were able to finish the BV and Furnace Woods infrastructure update. So at this time, all of our infrastructure, we did that for high school, middle school, and FGL last year. So at this time, all of our infrastructure updates are completed. So we're good for another 4 to 5 years before we have to do the cycle again. Now, hardware replacement. So when I started working here, I know one of the things we spend a lot of money on is during COVID, the one-to-one devices. That kind of put our replacement cycle behind. So, and it was by building. Now it's by district. So I look at what is the district need. So it's not every year we're not doing the high school, then 5 years later we do the high school again. I look at how technology is used, how devices are used, and then we kind of do a need-based analysis and then do my replacement cycle based on that. So next year would be the middle school teacher laptops. FGL and Furnace Woods workstations, I put laptops there because right now all of our teachers have a desktop and a laptop. So the main offices and district office, we moved to just a laptop. So that laptop, when I get to my desk, I just dock it and I have the monitor, then I take it home with me. So we're trying to do a similar approach in the classrooms as well. So Furnace Woods, and we have some teachers who are piloting that model starting this week. So if that works out, that's what we're going to end up getting, just a laptop for the teachers. So batteries, sorry, can you go back one more time? So batteries for our network closets. So sometimes when we lose power, our batteries are on a 15-minute standby. So after that, you have to do what you need to do in that 15 minutes. So we will be adding additional time to our batteries. So we will be replacing and adding more batteries to our switches so they can stay on even if you lose power, at least until we get a parent score call out and maybe getting that message out to the parents. So next year, we really want to start working on a lot of artificial intelligence stuff came out since ChatGPT got released. So this year, I got a chance to go to a session that was by our model schools. It was a 4-day session. It was very informative around generative AI. We didn't have a lot of people, or I was the only one from here that attended that session, but I want to bring that back into the district. So we'll be doing some work around generative AI. Right now it's like an open platform. There's a lot of tools that are coming out. Also there's platforms that are coming out that are safe for our students to use. So we'll be looking at some of that information. And we'll continue to work on our computer science and digital literacy fluency for the rest of K-12. Around clear and targeted communication strategy, our elementary report cards are not translated, so I just budgeted for a module that we will be using in Infinite Canvas that would do translation for next year. So as soon as the ELA pilot is done, we'll look at the report cards and then we'll see what needs to be changed, and then that report card will be translated. Data analyst position. So last year, towards the end, we have a consultant that's working as a data analyst, which is really working out great. We did, she's now doing all the state and federal reporting. We had a data engineer through EduTech, so I did include in the report, the board report, that I reduced that 40-hour week to a 24-hour week right now. We may reduce that a little bit more for next year. She's been doing a lot of work with our math coach and a literacy coach, doing a lot of the data-driven instruction, looking at the reports that are coming out of iReady, FNP, that type of work. So that's been working out really great. So you'll see a huge increase on my software budget because we are taking the approach this year of consolidating all the software from all the buildings into the technology budget. This would help us to see if there's overlaps in the software programs that we're buying and how they're being used. So that increase, you will see it on the table towards the end. I've been updating you on Windows 11 deployment, the piloting that we're doing. We have more teachers who are going to be piloting in the next 2 weeks. Our goal is to have Windows 11 rolled out for next school year. So that's after Furnace Woods and FGL workstations are updated, all of our workstations are also updated, because there were a lot of workstations at BV and FGL that were over 7 years old that was not going to be supported in Windows 11. So we would be in a good place to roll out Windows 11. And then Microsoft Office 365. We always paid for Microsoft licenses, but we never really took advantage of it. One of the things that we can do with the cloud version of Microsoft is even when you're taking your laptop home, we can still manage and push out things to your laptop and make sure they're updated. Last year, I did do a security check on all of our laptops in the district, because some of those laptops has been checked out since COVID and never made it back into the district. They've been at home. So some of those laptops took days to update with Windows updates. So that's a security breach itself. So having Office 365 will be able to make sure when they turn on the laptop, it's taking on and updating the information. This is something that I would strongly recommend for the district. Like I said, mentioned before, there's a lot of things that I attend around the Model Schools program. We don't have a lot of participation from our staff in that program, but it's also because they have to leave their work. They have to go somewhere. A lot of it is happening at the Lower Hudson Regional Information Center and PNW BOCES. So they have to leave their classroom to do that. So if we had a technology leader type of position, we can have those staff get those training and turnkey. That would be much better than everybody leaving the classroom all at once. So this is something that I would strongly recommend for next year. So we have to look at what other school districts do, what is the best approach to be able to do that. So last year we started, we stepped into a collaborative model with the Lower Hudson Regional Information Center. Lower Hudson, the LYRIC, is actually a consortium where we can use services that they provide. They usually actually have a lot of the things that we buy, like iReady and things like that. We buy it through the consortium, so we get a good pricing rather than going direct with the vendor, and on top of it, we get aid on those services. So last year, we stepped into a collab model. That means we have our network administrator who is hired through the RIC. So we were also able to participate in what they call an IPA, which is an installment purchase program. So before, we used to have, through Chase Loan, every year when I say I need $600,000, we get a Chase loan for that $600,000 for 5 years, but we never got aid on it. So now, with the co-op model that we entered through the BOCES, when I spend that $500,000, the next year you get an aid for about 40% back. So we started that last year. Next year we'll be going down on 2 engineers with EduTech and adding those 2 engineers with the LYRIC. I also recommended the security service that we get through the district. So if we participate in a LYRIC security service program, then when we have the servers or all the cameras that you see, they are expensive. So when you buy those, again, you get aid on it. So that's something that I had recommended to facilities and also security. The next 2, we are actually are at our end of a 5-year contract with the copiers and also with our ISP and WAN services. So we have ISP and WAN services through First Light. We are negotiating right now with First Light and also with the Lyric about their services. That would be another 5-year contract through them to see what pricing that's going to come back. Again, we get E-rate on our internet services, which is through the state, and also in anything that's not E-rateable, we get aid through the BOCES if we go through BOCES. The copier and printer is going to be, right now copier and printer is 2 different budgets, 2 different vendors. I'm trying to bring them together in under one vendor so that we can do some type of consolidated printers. Right now we have every classroom has, especially at the middle school and down, every classroom has a printer. So we want to go to more centralized printing locations. Actually at the district office, we already started that. So between the superintendent office area, there were 5 offices. So now there's 2, a color and a black and white printer. So we wanted to step out and say, well, we're already doing this at the district office, so we want to move that down to the buildings as well. And some of the advantages for going through the Lyric is we do get state aid. They do the contract negotiations. They do the EDLO 2D stuff for us, so we're compliant with them, and also the support that we get through them. I gave a small example of how a 5-year negotiation, like those numbers, actually I got some numbers today which might be even lower than that, but that's how the difference would be. So the first column is what we are spending right now on a 5-year WAN services direct with First Light. So if you go through the Lyric after the aid, what that's going to look like. And right now we have the way that our district network is set up, and if I can say it plain, it's like a ring network. We're trying to create a ring network so all of our buildings are connected. So if right now, if the high school goes down, the entire district goes down as well. So we're trying to create a network where you have the high school and the middle school as the core. So that way, if the high school goes down, then the middle school can pick us back up. So I thought that number was going to come back pretty high for us from the vendors, but it's pretty decent. So that's actually, that might be something that we will be moving forward with. And these are some of the advantages of going with the Lyric WAN services, all of the compliancy, but at the same time the security that they provide with the network that, that we get. So that brings my budget to 2.9. I won't go line by line unless you want me to, but I did cover all the things that are listed here within the slides. So that brings my number to 2.9 million, a little over 2.9 million. So thank you for your support to my staff, and they also thank you for your support. And I just wanted to do a plug-in for STEAM Innovation Day on March 23rd.
Thank you, Vinitha. So if we we'll move now to our Assistant Superintendent for Business, who just stepped out, was just stepping back in. But as he's getting settled, I do want to say thank you to both Lisa and Vinitha for presenting first in this model. You demonstrated appropriate risk-taking, and you followed the parameters of what we were hoping to do to the community to provide information about what we've done with the support of last year's budget, what we plan to do with next year's budget, and some of the changes that are going into that. And you did it in a clear and succinct manner, but yet you conveyed a lot of information in that short amount of time. So thank you for that. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent for Business, Mr. Enrique Catalan, for 2 of the items you will see throughout our budget development process to help you see how our end number will change based upon some of the factors that go into an ever-developing budget. So, Mr. Catalan?
Thank you. I don't have a lot of exciting stuff to tell you, like Lisa and Benita. I just have numbers. I pay for that, but nothing else. So, the really exciting part about tonight is that we receive our state aid. And although this is not final, because this is only, like Mike said, the governor's budget, we received an increase of over $2 million compared to last year. If you remember last time, we thought that the increase was going to be about $1.8 million. So yeah, we were almost there, but better. Our other income, we still believe that is a little bit conservative, but we have $2.8 million compared to $2 million of last year, and this is mainly because of an increasing interest income that we're still expecting this year because interest rates are still high compared to 2 years ago when we did the budget, and because of Lisa's programs that we bring tuition money from other schools. Transfers, we had to increase it a little bit. These transfers are from the cafeteria fund, and it's because the operating fund pays for Claire's salary, and then the cafeteria fund pays back the operating fund. So that's what the transfer is. Fund balance, as we have been discussing for months, we have a very big unassigned fund balance, and the question was, when are we going to start drawing on that money? Well, you can see it here that this is the first year that we start drawing big amounts. Last year was $2.5 million. This year is 3.7. Pilots, as you can see, pilots are going down. Why? Because this year we're getting $4 million from Holtec. Next year we're getting only 3.8, and from our RESCO pilots we always get a little bit more every year. And finally, cessation fund. Cessation fund goes down every year by about $2 million because of the formula of the cessation fund. So our non-property tax revenue means everything that we put into the budget, but the taxes that we charge the community is going to be $41 million compared to basically $38 million last year. And that's an increase of close to 8%. Now, our proposed budget, you're going to say, hey, we told you to lower the budget and you increased it. What's going on here? Well, what's going on here is that we got in state aid $620,000 for our UPK. Those $620,000 are an increase of revenue, but I also have to add it in the operating budget, because when I get the money, I'm just a transfer payment to whomever is our UPK provider. So one goes against the other one. However, it's not $600,000 that we increase it, because the two salaries from UPK, from teachers this year, now I took them out because now those two teachers are going to be part of teaching, and I don't know exactly what, probably K and first grade, but definitely not UPK. So there's going to be two teachers that we will lose because of UPK, because UPK now, it's not going to be under our teachers, someone else is going to be teaching the UPK students. So that's why the increase. That doesn't mean that really there is an increase, and we're looking very closely in scheduling in the high school and middle school. We haven't decreased 1 cent there, and that's where we expect some reductions. We also haven't finished talking to our middle school and high school principal about reductions in non-salary items in their budgets. We had yesterday a meeting with music. They gave us very good reductions, but it was too late to include them here. So you will see them in the next presentation. So don't think that we misunderstood, that you wanted more expenses. No, no, no. I know you want less expenses, but that's why compared to last time, this time is more. And again, the proposed tax levy is not more, because one goes against the state aid. The one thing that I can tell you is that the tax cap, it's almost there. I only need one more data to get the final number. But if you can see the tax cap, last time I said it was going to be about 4.1. So because of some of the new data that I got, it's going to be 4.3. So we're very close to the tax cap, but still there's going to be a reduction of expenses. Now, the bad news is that if we're in contingent budget, we can only increase our budget to $91 million. And if that's the case, we will have to cut $2.3 million from the budget. If these were the final budget, that it's not. But under these numbers, that would be the number of cuts that we'll have to make. Next one, Carmen, thank you. The projections, I updated them to these numbers. Basically, if you look at it, again, the proposed budget is 6% increase. The tax levy increase is 4.6, and then going forward, based on a 2% increase in budget going forward for the next 5 years. Actually, in 25-26, the increase is expected to be 4.21, but that's because if I'm taking into account that the board will decide, that hasn't been decided, to do a capital project the following year. That's the first year that we start paying for that capital project. So that's why instead of being 2%, it's 4.21, because the payments for that new capital project will be the other 2% increase in the budget. The following year is only 1.6, because we have some maturity in some of the smaller projects that we did in 2009, 11, and 12. And then the rest, I'm assuming that the board will want to have a proposed budget increase of 2%, which is basically the average of what it was in the past 7-8 years. The other part that I want to discuss at the bottom is the unassigned fund balance, that you can see that this year we are at 20.5. And also that's going to be another discussion that the board will need to have, is to open a reserve, because that amount is way above the 4% that we're allowed by law, and to open a reserve so we can put the money there for future reduction of tax levy due to the fact that Indian Point closed. And that's basically it for me, so thank you.
Thank you, Enrique. If we move to our next slide, this is a reminder of our 24-25 budget vote. And if you wish to register, there's information there. And a reminder that the vote is on May 21st, the third Tuesday in May. And if there is a need for a revote, that will take place on June 18th. Here's just a reminder on the next slide of our contingent budget rules. If the first proposed budget is voted down by a simple majority, we have a couple options. We could either put the same budget back up, or we can make a tweak to that budget. And if then that budget fails again, we would have to adopt a contingency budget. And then our last slide is the key component of this evening's work session. If we move to the next slide. We appreciate the board allowing us to present two of our major areas of budget expenditures, proposed budget expenditures as well, in special ed and technology. And to assist us in our continued budget development, we wanted to have a conversation. If you had any questions on the content from the presentations, needing clarification, but also then to revisit some of the parameters that you have asked us to consider so that we can continue to refine that budget. As Enrique said, we are proposing a budget that is not compliant with the tax cap as we calculate it currently. So we know we need to make some cuts, but we want some feedback on your thoughts on how that might process.
Hi. My first question, I guess, was just for Lisa. Did anything about our programs change from this year to what you're doing next year, other than the therapeutic program that you wanted? And is that included in our overall budget, or is that just a wish list item?
The programs did not change, with the exception of the 12s. We went down 1 12 because there's K1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there'll be 2 12s versus 3, and we're adding a ABC. So it's a wash, because you're going down a program, so you'll repurpose that teacher where we have an opening.
So I guess my question is, if I look at like the salary expenses, it's an additional $899,000, and then just programs, development, department, and buildings is another $2 million, which gets us to like $2.9 million in an overall increase in your budget. So I'm just trying to understand, if we didn't change the programs and we still are going to be providing the same thing in 2024, where are all the additional costs coming from? What's the drivers?
Yep, you have the raises, all the salary increases. So remember, all mine include everybody. So it's the administration in my office, it's the secretaries in my office, the TAMA, the HHEA, and the other one. Secretary. ESA, right. And the nurses fall under the teachers. But we also asked for a PT, or I'm sorry, an OT, and a psychologist, and I'm putting the psychiatrist, it's not in the salaries, but it will help push it up because that's part of the contractual piece. I want to hire her through us, but she doesn't want to do that. She wants to keep going through BOCES. So that's additional staff members, plus I'm asking for some more related service, support staff, paraprofessionals.
Gotcha. And then I guess you would have to duplicate the services for the 2 K2s now that we're doing as well.
So, yes. So I can actually, I have a chart that's helped me. This chart has really helped me. So I've kept a chart based on Vanitha running where kids will be located. Now remember, that's going to have to be updated with all these referrals that we've been getting, like where would those kids go? So one of the things that I will tell you is that each building has a different amount of special ed teachers. For example, it's loading, of course, it won't load as quick as I wanted to. I put one section of K at both buildings. We're not gonna do a skills, we're just gonna do an ICT, because we're finding that the kids coming in now don't really need the skills in kindergarten, right? They're past the COVID time where they have those skills. But in our first grade at Furnace Woods, I really only need one section for skills and ICT because there's only 2 kids. At BV, I need 2 sections because there's enough, I think there's 8 kids total, so I'll need to split a skills and IT. So it's duplicating, but it's servicing the kids. It's servicing the kids within the school.
And then I guess my other question was, do you know what aid we got last year compared to the $474,000 grant you got?
Well, the $474,000 grant is a total different grant. That's a mental health grant. It was a competitive grant. It is really for a couple salaries and a stipend. Other than that, it's all about kids. Everything that we do in that grant is about SEL and social emotional learning. So we'll do a screener for K3 through 12. From the screener, we'll do this, which will implement programs. So that's a whole nother set. I can't tell you what I get state aid, but I can probably tell you in my grant, I get $675,000 approximately for my 611, and my 619 is about $20,000 for preschool. It's really low. But my stack this year for preschool was $32,000, so those are high-cost kids. And my stack for school age was $95,000 or $97,000. And on top of that, we get the aid from all the kids that go out. So that's your BOCES aid that you're seeing here. So if you'll notice, from last year to this year, it's jumped. In Enrique's presentation, you will see that that's a huge jump on page.
In the last page.
Yeah, the last page.
And Lisa, just clarify for the acronym STACK, for the STACK.
STACK is just a high cost. So it's a student high cost. So our high cost is $65,000. So if a program costs more than $65,000, if we send them out, which all of our programs, I think maybe one doesn't, is more than $65,000, and then a lot of them require an aid, you will get cost back on each kid. So that's why we get that. And we have a service that does all of that work for us. But if you look at Enrique's, I'm sorry?
100,000 more.
Yeah, so if you look how it went from 923,761 to 1.3 million, most of that is BOCES tuition aid.
But Tamika, I'll work with Enrique and we'll make sure he's fine for your question. You're looking for the entire PPS department or special ed aid?
Because there's many kids that will get BOCES services that we won't get very much aid on. That they might get hearing services, they might get teacher of the visually impaired, depending on the need and level of them. But the higher, your tuition kids that are going to BOCES, we have quite a few, you get a tuition reimbursement on all of them.
Gotcha. And then I guess my last question was if we had an influx of kids, right? You said you had 15 and there's 4 at the high school.
Well, we're having, that's elementary. That's 2 elementaries. We had 15 referrals. And they weren't by the schools, they were by parents. So there's many indicators there that we need to change a little bit of what we're doing. I had one of my psychologists break out the number of hours it took her from the testing to the paperwork, to the classroom observations, to writing the paperwork, to the meeting. And we're talking about 20 hours each student, which isn't a bad thing, but if we're not following a process and we're jumping right to classification, that's how we're missing a lot of steps in between. So we're going to work on a process. It's going to be a slow process, but it's something we have to do as a whole district, not just a PPS thing.
I guess in your budget, is there like a little bit of room for added students if you needed?
I try to add 1 to BOCES, and I'll say, oh, this one's graduating, I'm not going to take them out because that money might go here, right? But again, the tuition I budgeted for residential was $350,000. I might be able to find a state school that will take him or her for $150,000. So that money might not be used. And I always put in for extra staff. And even this year we were down, if you see my budget, we're down in staff because we had somebody go on maternity leave, I didn't replace her, and I put in a staff member that we didn't replace. So technically the OT is in this year's budget, but because we haven't got it approved yet from
service?
Civil service, I'm paying them out of my grant through BOCES.
Can I just ask one follow-up question for that? You said for next year, you're projecting for Furnace Woods first grade to have 2 students for an ICT class?
1 second. I opened my chart.
I just didn't know if I heard that right.
Yes, there's like each grade, first grade.
First grade, I think at Furnace Woods, it's like 2 students. 1 ICT skills and one ICT full day. So we'll have that teacher working with a teaching assistant, and we'll do some, you know, we'll be very creative. They're going to get the same services with creativity.
At BV, the 2 sections that you have, would those students have put them over the maximum amount of students you could have in the classroom?
No.
No.
Hi, Lisa.
Hiya.
Can you just explain to the public how taking tuition students offsets the cost for the special education department here?
Yes. So I'm going to talk numbers because I did this nice chart for Mike. That's what I'm trying to get to. So I'm going to use, for example, an ABC class at Frank G. Out of the 8 students, 4 of the students in the class are tuition students. That means 4 are ours, right? But if we only had 4 in that cohort, it would be way expensive to keep 4 students of our own with an OT, a PT, a speech, a psychologist, and a classroom teacher, and 2 teaching assistants. That's how much staff is in that classroom. So those other 4 students are paying off our staff. Anything above and beyond that, we're making a profit. So in each one of our classes, and I'll just give you a quick overview, in our 6-1 class, we have 2 students that are tuition. Our 8-1-2 in ABC in Frank G, 4 are ours, 4 are tuition. In our Let's Get Ready program, which is a 12, 8 are ours, 2 are tuition. Furnace Woods, we have 8 in the 8-1-2, we have 8 students, 5 are tuition. That's a big number. But those 3 students that are ours, where would we put them? They would have to go out of district. And we're talking an out of district student is about $150,000 by the time you add everything on. You're talking their related services, OT, PT, speech, and you will find when you send them out, they want to double everything when kids really don't need that much, but that's how they keep their staff employed.
Transportation.
Transportation. This doesn't include in transportation. In our second ABC class, there's 8 students. 1 of them is a tuition. In the middle school, we have 8 students, 2 are tuition. In the high school, we have 8, 1 is a tuition. And in the high school, we have 12, and 4 are tuition. So the more tuition kids we get to balance it, the more it pays our program to keep our kids in their school. So I'm a big advocate about not putting our kids out of the district. We need to keep them in their community school. I only put them out if we have to, and that's a big, big thing. If we cannot service everything they need, then they need a different type of program. That being said, the tuition that we bring in offsets all of our costs. So it may pay for the whole classroom staff, and then anything that's left over goes to Enrique. I never say it, don't tell me.
Above and beyond keeping our students in our district, you did a brief analysis of what it might cost to, if we had to send our students out to other programs that we were not providing because they have the right to those programs. What's the back of the envelope cost?
$5.2 million.
Do we have any room to take any more tuition students?
Currently, I just turned 3 away for my ABC elementaries because there's no space. We have a variance in each one of our babies, our K2s. One is for a student that just moved. Literally, we took an out-of-district kid, and the next day we had a student move in. So we wrote a variance. We were I will only do 1 over. I'll never do anything else. I will do an age if it's a couple months. But in next year, if we open another program, and we know we have 4 seats, and I know I have 3 kids waiting. They're saying, "Tell me when it opens." We are very well known in the county, and a lot of people. We have people coming from Newburgh to us because parents are very happy. That 40 minutes means nothing to them. Hastings comes to us, so I'm really impressed with what we've done. But currently, there is no space for anything. I have 1 open seat in the middle school. That's it.
And my last question is about the anchor program at the high school.
Yes.
You said there was no cost because you just moved teachers around.
Mhm.
Where did you move them from?
So what we did is, we knew we needed this program, right? So what we did is we took a quick look at our middle school and we moved one of our middle school teachers up. And she actually was in the ABC program in the middle school. So when a teacher got moved down, and we had already slated to hire a new teacher, so that really was no cost because we already knew we were doing it and we didn't do it from the year before. And we created this program. It didn't give us any more support staff, it was only the teacher. And what we've seen in the kids, I had someone say to me last year, this kid doesn't belong here. Amelia doesn't belong in this school. I'm like, no, they do. We just need to understand what a neurodivergent student is. And if I look at Christina Fiel, she will tell you this is exactly what we needed in the high school. I have never seen these kids flourish like I've seen this year.
And I just wanted to thank you for writing that grant.
Oh,
for
thank
school
you.
avoidance.
Yes.
It's a big issue. So, thank you.
I'll tell you, I had a lot of help from BOCES. We had a grant writer who stepped in, the last few hours? And I was crying Friday night saying, I don't want to even hit submit. She's like, just hit it. I'm like, I can't. She's like, just hit the button. And it was great. So we thought we both got it, but.
So I'll jump in just to, I know it was in one of our updates, but just so the public knows, Lisa and the team submitted for a competitive grant through this New York State RECOVES grant. It was using federal COVID relief funds to support either student learning loss or to support student mental health. And the component of Hendrick Hudson's competitive grant submission was approved by the state in principle, and we are anticipating being funded to a tune of almost $500,000. It's a matching grant, so we have to put up some money, but it provides services for our students. Having written the grant in a previous district, I don't know if they received it. So I know the work that went into that, and it's truly immense. And even for Margaret to submit her package too, it takes plenty of person hours and a lot of team support. You're asking for data from the technology department, you're asking for information from the business department, so the team should be very proud of itself.
Just one last question. What is the cost to the district for the 2 students that will be at Furnace Williams?
I would say the cost of the district, it will be a teacher's salary and a teaching assistant salary.
But if we bring in more students.
See, here's the thing about the ICT classes. The difference is we do have 3 ICT students, and they're from schools like Enrique's school, Pecanico, Garrison, who don't have those types of programs, right? So there's very few of them. And we had a couple at the middle school, but because they did so well and grew so well, we threw them back home. Because that's what our job is, to give them back to their districts, right? And they be in their home community like ours. So we don't get a lot of just ICT kids, and if we do, they're extremely dysregulated, and personally, I don't want to bring the dysregulation in when we have our own dysregulation. So we try hard to screen.
Erica, can I ask a quick question just to follow up on something?
The $5.2 million back of the napkin math question, was that a cost avoidance by offering those programs here?
Yes.
We're avoiding not spending that money by, okay.
Those students. Combination.
It's a combination. I think when they started them years ago, it was they were noticing a high increase of students with autism coming in as students, and they wanted to keep them in the district. So I think it started with that, and then if we don't keep them and we send them out, that's a number one, you're going to have parent revolts, but you're also going to have that initial cost.
And there are students.
Yeah, they should be at home.
Yeah, agree.
I'm going to go, my questions are actually not, I think they covered most of mine for Lisa.
Yes.
My questions are for Vinitha. And some of it I followed, some of it I didn't. No, that's okay. It's not your fault. It's probably mine. The printers. We're taking away the printers from the elementary and middle schools in the classrooms to centralize them.
So not really. So we are talking about 3 and up. So next year will be FGL. So 3, 4, 5. We'll be centralizing it. It doesn't mean that they don't have access to a printer. It would be like, let's say you have 7 classes, they would have a printer at a location that they can reach to.
Like
so
we
the world.
We do that.
So,
we do that.
So
we in our team, in our wing,
Yeah.
we have one printer for all of our classrooms that we could send like a main copy to, and then we go to the copy machine if we want to mass produce.
Right. No, I got that. It's so it's
Okay.
AirPrint. I got it. What I'm wondering is, in elementary school, the teachers can't really leave the classroom. It's very difficult for them to leave the classroom. If there's confidential documents on the printer, or notes that they have to get to immediately, have we thought through that process for them?
Yeah, so part of the consolidation would be, right now we just have a copier in elementary school. Part of it would be, it's secure print, so you need to have your badge to release it. So, like if there's a TA in the classroom or if there's a monitor, they can pick up the job if you assign that they are allowed to pick up the job for that person. But it may need, they're just doing the walkthrough right now. We may have to add an additional copier somewhere. It's still better than having like 20 printers instead of replacing it with like one copier.
So if I could just jump in, and this is not a judgment, this is just an observation. Every problem that has been, or concern that is associated with removing classroom printers, because there's been configurations that allow us to have consolidate printers for so long, all those problems have been addressed by the school districts who have implemented that, and we can easily support our teachers or anybody who has to go through that with this. And additionally, don't just think it's the cost of the printer. If you have your own inkjet at home, you know that there comes a point in time where it's cheaper to buy a new printer than it is to buy a new cartridge.
So if I can add to that, when we did the walkthrough with Canon right now, they did identify which printers are too old, right? That means there's also a security threat and firmware update that's lacking on them. So on the map itself, they would highlight it as red. There's a lot of red in our district. If we were to start replacing those printers, now the cost goes up. Like my IPA will go up per classroom. So, and in between like the district that I did come from, we did move to centralized printing, especially right after COVID, because we gave one-to-one Chromebooks to students and one-to-one devices to teachers. And we went Google Classroom here, we went Schoology. So we are, as far as a technology world goes, we are very well versed in that, but at the same time, when you see a printer, like I took my printer away from my office just because if I see it, I'm gonna print it, right? So I just don't want it there. So it's also a little bit of a psychological way of thinking, like if you see it, you're gonna print it. So it's a shift that they have to do, but we've been talking to the principals for the last couple of years that this is coming. So,
and then if you're talking about the computers, the one-to-one laptops for the staff, when the staff leave the room with their computer, what is the backup for them in that room?
So again, this is starting at FGL and Furnace Woods because we did replace the workstations at high school and middle school. The first year I was here and last year, or this year. We did look at the attendance is an issue. So we did, the school district where I came from, I gave the main office 3 additional laptops. So it's still not 2 devices per staff. Like in my office, I have a spare one. So like Mike forgot one time, I'm gonna put it out there. So I just give it to the person that forgot a laptop, right? He was working at home all night, so he forgot. So, so the schools will have a similar. So each office would have 5, but all of our TAs also have a Chromebook. So the Chromebook can also go into a dock because it's a USB-C dock. So it's not that they won't have a device at all. So it's only if you have a sub covering the class that's completely coming from outside, subbing, like sometimes we get subs in that covers the building maybe once a year or twice a year. That's where you would start to run into the issue. They don't even have an account into our system at that time.
I'm like fried, Gregory.
Explain the therapeutic program, like, so you told us a bunch of different ages, so how do you, what does that look like?
So this is under Lisa's 2024, 2025 request.
Those are my wish lists, right? So a therapeutic program versus a flex program or the school avoidance program. So there's two different programs. Therapeutic would be an actual 812, right? You need a teacher, a TA, and probably a psychologist for that. So that would have to be within 36 months. If we go with the school avoidance and the flex program, you could actually have multiple, because it's not consistent. Like you're not there as a program, gen ed, special ed, or 504 can go there. There'll be one certified teacher and a TA that would be in the room. And if I just can't get to that class that day, but I'm in school, I can get instruction, I can get support from a psychologist or a social worker. That is where you can do like 7 through 12. A therapeutic will have to be 36 months. So I have to balance out where am I going to get more bang for my buck. I think we're going to get more bang for our buck with a flex program. The only thing that I've been sharing with Mike is that my concern is having it in a building, and I want PPS to oversee it for a couple different reasons. Number one, I don't want it to be a drop zone where we just put kids. I don't want kids just to show up. I do, but I don't. You know what I mean? I want it to be a safe place. And number three, if it's in a building, your school avoiding kids may not show up. And why wouldn't they, right? But if we had it, and when we were recruiting, they have their own entrance. There's like their own doorbell that rings inside that they can let kids in. And I think that's what you have to look at. Where can I find a space like that that's away from the population, that they feel like it's a safe environment?
And so Chris and I have been looking at like scoping out places, but until we know where Benita's going to end up, until we know where all these other things are going to happen, we can't really choose space. So I'm really looking at the flex program because we are finding that more and more kids are the school avoidant, but they're not just school avoidant. They get here and I don't like Mr. Tremblay, so I'm not going to go to that class. And constantly missing that class, there's something going on. That's where you get your school psychologist, your social worker, and that teacher trying to figure out what that relationship is. Because as we know, school is all about relationships.
Okay, so if it was just say in the high school, we serve high school kids, if it was in the, you're not gonna have 7th graders come to
well,
the
that's
high
why we were talking off-site. We were trying to figure out like an off-site place. And then Chris and I were talking today, like going through, okay, where are our school avoidant kids? Like we were trying to figure out where are you gonna get most bang for your buck? So we're trying to figure out where these kids will be next year to say, okay, will we be able to help them better if we go here or here? And then it's working with the buildings to try to find space. Space, number one, that you can have an office, you can have a classroom, and a space like a sensory space, because a lot of these kids have sensory needs, right? And a separate entrance. So if they're feeling avoidant and we go and get them on this bus like we talked about, then we then could bring them into this separate entrance. I have a flyer all done. I'll share with Mike that he can share with you guys, or I can put in our Thursday board update.
Okay. And then the additional ABC class for K2, it doesn't really sound like it's not really a request, I guess it's a need.
It's really going to be a need because I can tell you 4 kids off the top of my head that have to go into an ABC program. Okay. And right now all the K2 kids that are in K1 would stay in K1. So they're full.
Okay.
So again, when we think about seeing a budget to budget increase, that additional ABC class that is needed, that's the reason why we're explaining it through this process.
Right. And if you look at that process, you're talking, if we just send 4 kids out, there's $500,000.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
And then, so the additional psychologist, so what is driving your need on that?
So we originally always had 5 psychologists here. We tried to go down to 3. And the psychologist said it's too much work. So currently we really do have 3 because we couldn't find a behaviorist who is also a teacher. So in the Hendrick-Hudson line, and I don't know how to explain this any better than probably you could, in order to be a BCBA in our district, you also have to be a teacher because you fall under the teacher contract.
Okay? There is no civil service position for that. You can't just come in, et cetera, et cetera. There's a BCBA aide, but I don't want an aide, I want a BCBA. We can't find a BCBA. We could not find one at all. So we hired a psychologist, and that's her role. She does do the testing for the kids she works with, which is all the ABC classes, but there's still work for another person.
And then I had one for Benita, I think. It's just, so you said your software increased. Does that mean somewhere else we had a decrease? Okay.
Yes. So each one of the buildings send me their software list for next year. So that would come up their budget, and it would come into mine.
Okay. So we should see a decrease somewhere else. That maybe we can make sure we highlight that.
So in addition to financial savings, we now also have more control over how the tool is implemented, that we're using. Benita now can say we don't need multiple tools that do the same thing, we're consolidating it. So we also see an instructional benefit too as well.
Now, and each school has a tech leader, correct? That is.
So we have, so when I came in, we had 23 tech coaches, but they were teachers.
Yeah.
They were only allowed to work before and after school. So really, during COVID time, they did a lot of work, right? But they don't have time because they're teaching full time. So we changed our model to last year and this year, where I pay them for one of their prep times. So if they're doing something, like some of the teachers are doing Windows 11 pilot for me. So if they're doing something like a pilot or working with a teacher on Microsoft Translator during their prep time, I pay them for one of their prep time. So that's a little bit better than before, but still they're full-time teachers. So most of the districts that I talk to, either they have a tech facilitator or a coach, kind of like our coaches here, like on a stipend, but they're not in the classroom all the time. So when all these technology things, we have a great deal of technology in the district, but are we utilizing them is the problem. If you don't go out and get refresher courses, like, you know, a lot of our programs I see is when we launched it, we probably had PD, but then we're not keeping up to date, right? Any software goes through release notes and updates and things like that. So when you go through the RIC, like a lot of times I would take a group of teachers to a round table discussion or a user group meeting where they learn about new features of the product, and they come back into the building and they turnkey that into the building. And that's the only way you can grow with technology, because technology changes so much.
But that position is not actually in those numbers.
Correct. No, it was just, it was an ad.
This is that is a request that did not make it through the initial budget development phase. But as we go through the development process and get feedback from you, as we go through our staffing, when we see what retirements do we have coming in, what changes in staffing do we see, Benita has put that out to the public for us to consider, because there may be a way to do it without increasing overall full-time equivalency or overall number of staff. Meaning maybe we have somebody retire, and instead of filling that position, we could bring in a tech coach if there's not.
Right. So one, we wouldn't need to have the teacher at the building level anymore. We would not have to do that stipend or however you pay them. And then is this somebody we could get through the LARIC?
So we did, if you remember, we did have a tech facilitator that's working with the computer science standards, but I'm not happy with that because there's no time. They're not able to work with the teachers because the ELA work took a lot of the prep time. So they're only here 2 days a week in a building, or 1 day a week. So they're not getting in front of the teachers enough because they have so many other initiatives going on.
Gotcha.
So if you have someone here, they can start a group work. Like I'm about to do a group, trying to get a group together for the generative AI PD work, hoping that that group can turnkey it to the rest of the building.
And with any instructional coach, the research-based best practices show that that coach engages in a cycle where they work with a teacher on a problem of practice, or observe what's going on in their classroom, they identify something they'd like to improve, they work with the teacher on strategies to implement to make that improvement, and they reflect and refine instructional practices based upon that. And there's actually a New York State certification for instructional technology coaches called an Education Technology Integration Specialist, which, having gone through that certification, that individual working with the teacher, you know you are getting value add, because it's a certified teacher that's also working with a teacher to improve.
So it's an HHEA employee, okay, that's what I wanted to
Yes.
understand. And is there someone that's qualified that's on staff already, or we would have to qualify someone? Do we know?
No, we would have to.
Send somebody out to get it?
We would have to look. We would have to evaluate our staff.
Okay.
I think we have qualified staff.
But you think
we just have to.
Okay. All right, sorry.
My question's short, easy. Year-to-date numbers, that's not actually year-to-date. That's projected for the year based on what we've spent so far year-to-date, right? So we're not gonna, on Lisa's line item, we're not gonna spend 18.4 million. It's that what we've spent today, if we project that through the end of the year, it's gonna be 9.2, yeah?
It really depends on the case. For example, salaries.
Yeah.
I have what we have expense plus the unencumbered part to get to the end of the year. For the rest, it's either it's not either. It's year to date plus what it has been encumbered in that account code.
Perfect.
So you can see in some you might see in some cases, I don't know where, for example, coaches. We don't encumber coaches as, you know, so if you see coaches today, you're going to see like 2/3 of the payments because we haven't started paying coaches for the spring. So it really depends, but salaries besides the coaches is encumbered, is the total salary for the years. For example, what Lisa said about chauffeurs. Liz sends her a bill, you know, probably in 3 weeks or 4 weeks for 4 months.
So, a particular note of school finance and how it differs from home finance. School districts normally can't pay with a check or cash or credit card. The latter thanks to a nice school district out on Long Island, right? So we have to use purchase orders, which is basically a promise to pay through a verified amount. So Enrique is talking about encumbering. There are some expenses that I cut a purchase order for the specific expense at the time that I need it, and I've paid the vendor. There may be some that I know I'm going to need this in the future, and it's a monthly charge. I'm going to encumber the entire amount right now, even though I haven't received the services yet, because I know that's going to be. There are some cases where I encumber funds, and there's some cases that I just cut a PO when I know I'm going to buy it. So that's why the year-to-date may not show everything that's been spent right now.
I just wanted to make sure, like on hospital tutoring, we're not going to spend. We didn't spend 50,000 to today based on 60, and then we're going to incur it. That's what we're expecting for the year, basically.
We encumber it for 3 different hospitals that we work with, but also we encumber as soon as my $8 million comes in for whatever. Enrique encumbers all of that, whether we use it or not. Then it goes right back to the general fund. So most of my stuff is encumbered for all the tuitions, and if we don't use it, that PO gets closed and Enrique puts it in general fund.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I was just going to go back to my questions for you. I'm just going to circle back. So this year, kindergarten had 2 sections of ICT?
It was
one ICT, one STEM?
It was one ICT. Then we used a teacher for, she was giving resource room to another student, and then she taught 2 hours of skills. So we really she pulled the skills out of the ICT classroom.
But now we're going to go up to 3 sections for next year?
No, we'll have 2 kindergarten.
For first grade?
Oh, no. For first grade, well.
Because you said 2 at
right,
BV.
But now the way they're split, you're going to have that. I don't know off the top of my head now.
And then the one at, I'm just trying to think, If we're running a program then at Furnace Woods for 2 students, and you said that's coming out of cost of a teacher and a TA. Also, if that's 3 classrooms that have to be set up, I was just thinking of materials that you're going to need, because you said all of that comes out of your budget.
It's only 2, but it's only going to be 2. So what I'll do, how about I do this? Can I create the chart that I have, and I'll put it in my Thursday notice? So it'll be like, this is how many teachers, how many kids, etc.
Could you add a column comparing this year to last year number of
Absolutely.
sections?
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
That's it.
Oh, that was easy. Tell her.
You have a question.
Have you spoken to the teachers about using just a Chromebook or a laptop as opposed to a desktop? Are you providing support for teachers?
So I have a teacher right now at the high school who is piloting that, and we
laptop instead of desktop.
Piloting laptop.
I personally like to only do my work. I prefer to do my work on a desktop.
Wait, time out. Do you realize that a docking station is the same thing?
No.
Okay.
I don't
Will
know.
you explain?
Can you explain then what a docking station is for us that are not tech savvy?
Yeah. So I remember. I mean, the schools are 6, 7 years behind.
I had a docking
corporate
station
world.
years ago.
They took
So
away
if
my
I-
desktop
I'm not
one day,
tech
and I'm
savvy, girl.
like, where is it going? And
So
you
if
have to plug
I
in.
can explain, so when 20 years ago, when I was in private sector, all we got was a laptop. We got 2 monitors. We come in and we dock, right? 20 years ago, like that was my first.
It powers it.
It plugs it
So-
in and it goes to your monitor.
So there is a
Yes. You can all know that.
Yes.
And the keyboard.
We don't replace any of the peripherals. If some staff some of the offices has 2 monitors, and most of the classrooms have 1. They have a keyboard and a mouse. We have this called a docking station. So it's like a battery unit looking, a black box basically.
I want to apologize to all my students right now. I tell them all the time I'm not tech savvy.
We know the main focus of our teachers should be on their craft in the classroom.
Yeah.
And
So
any
that would give
change
anxiety,
that comes into that comes with a learning curve, and it's our job to support that. And Benita is seeing how she can best do that by having a teacher pilot
Yeah,
to
so
give
I
her
was just
feedback.
asking if, she could
so
make
we
sure
would-
they provide support for
Yeah,
that, because I
so
know for me that
that-
would make me nervous.
So as soon as you plug this in, your computer is now on your monitor. You don't have to open this up, but if you open it up, now you have 3.
Pretend the laptop is that box. Is your yes.
And imagine if you had an
It-
instructional technology coach who could support you with that transition.
So you get to take your desktop home with you, essentially. And you plug it into any monitor you want.
So when I started here, a lot of people did freak out about what I was saying. So I set it up and I said, come take a look at my office. And I bring this out to meetings and then come back and I plug it in. So it works. So we have teachers who are going to pilot that, and we'll let you know how that goes. I'll put it on a board update how that pilot goes.
You'll fall in love.
I have one last question for Enrique. I guess, Enrique, is it fiscally responsible for us to only be carrying 2% in our projections when this year we had an increase of, you said it was 8% from the 2% we've had over the last several years?
Yeah. It's very difficult to look at projections. What I'm saying is, okay, if in the last several years we were able to do an average of 2%, we can do it in the future. I can tell you at this point is, I agree with you. I agree specifically because one and only one reason. In the past, health insurance that represents 12 million in our budget. Today, actually, I spent all afternoon with the Health Insurance Consortium. We're expecting 5% to 6% increases going forward in the next year. So if you take into account, for example, that it's $12 million today, 5% is $600,000 in a budget of $90 million, you're talking, it probably is conservative, I would say, yes. But again, no one knows what's going to happen in 7-8 years. So I just went, what I learned in banking about projection is that the past should look like the future unless you know that it's not. And that's why, if the board wants, I can show them projections of 3, 4, 10, whatever amount, so you can see, okay, if something happens.
I just asked you that because the state aid is not reliable, right? That could change as we're seeing
yes.
it happen right now.
Actually today,
we've been heavily relying on that to get us to where we're at. Like, this budget increased by $5.3 million from last year, and we got $4 million extra in revenue. But we're still having to raise it over the 2% that we have. So my question is, how can we still continue to project 2% when we went up 8% this year after several years?
That's what I'm saying. When I started these projections and over the last several years, the board always said, we want you to be under the cap. And our caps in prior years were way below 4%. We're between negatives and 2.5%. So I had to be there. So the question is, okay, our cap will be more than 2%, will be between 2 and 3% going forward. So that means that if I go 2 to 3%, then 2% increase in the budget might be difficult. You also need to take into account, when I started these projections, our student population was going down by 10, 15%. So if this trend continues, I remember when I came here in 2008, we were close to 3,000 students. We're at 2,100. So we're talking 900 students. So if this trend continues, I don't see why not you can reduce tremendous amount of expenses to make it 2%. Projecting for 1 year is difficult. Projecting for 7 years is, anyone with no knowledge might be even better. Their projections might be better than mine, because who knows what's going to happen in 3, 4, 5, 6 years. The one thing I need to agree with you is the issue about state aid. State aid is very volatile, and you know that the state of New York depends mainly in 2 industries: banking and consulting, advertising, anything. You have a bad year, and bonus goes down, income for the state goes down. So, yeah, and if you ask me, in the next 8 years, is there going to be a recession in the state of New York? I will say there's no way no. And then that's when state aid needs to go. So we need to be careful. Yes, we need to, every cent that we spend here, we need to say, do we really need that money?
Just as a reminder for the board about the process, we did have an outside individual firm look at Enrique's projections, so the board can have confidence that the work that Enrique has done structurally, and we always want to hear feedback on what numbers we can use to present to you. But Enrique's projections, while he said nobody can predict the future, there is confidence in his projections as verified by an outside agency.
But the auditor also...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. in addition to the outside consultant, if you remember last year, we issued the 18.5 million bond. I have to present my projections to S&P. And S&P, the same way that I did it with our outside auditor, I went through with S&P, and S&P said, yeah, these are, these are reasonable. Yeah. That's all. That's all everyone is saying.
The auditor also said we should have. The auditor also said we should have $10 million by 2030 just for a safe landing with everything that's happening with Indian Point, and we're going to be left with 588. I just think that we need to be mindful as we go through the numbers and the dollars and how much everything is going to cost as to what this is going to look like for taxpayers, one, but also for our students, because they need to be first. And I don't want to, I hear all this, we can cut, and we can cut, and we can cut. What does that do to our programs for our kids? So I agree, expenses can come down, but as long as that does not impact our children and their programs that they need, then we can certainly look at that.
That's a balancing act.
Who said that is important? Who said we're cutting? Did we say cutting? I'm sorry.
Enrique said reduce expenses by doing cuts, so I'm just referencing what he just said.
But I think he means based on, I think if we have a reduced population, I think that's the driver, right? Like, do we have the right staff for the amount of students we have? But we shouldn't think about it as cuts based on we're cutting programs.
I think it's opportunities, frankly. There's, like, Benita's position is an opportunity.
Yeah. And by the way, even before Indian Point closed, I always told the board what doesn't make sense, because in any business everyone will say, hold on, we produce students that go to the world. If we're only producing 2,100 students that are going to go to the world in the next 12 years, but while we are increasing the number of expenses of teachers, when I came here, there were 230 teachers. We're at 252.
And we're 900 students less?
And we're 900 students less.
Well, interesting, because I'm going to get the book. I got to get the book.
So,
I don't know, we have 351 certified full-time staff members that we have been supporting to our data reporting.
No, when I say 252 teachers, I mean teachers, guidance counselors, anyone in the HHEA.
So, as we're looking at that, we are also asking the board, in addition to questions about content, any parameters that we have in place as we've been building and developing our budget that you'd like us to reconsider. So we have the parameters of not to exceed the tax cap at a 4 a.m. snow call this morning. It was 4:30, excuse me. Maintain all academic, what's that?
It was today?
No, it's today and yesterday. Maintain all academic and support programs within our new elementary configuration model as well. To review class scheduling, to look for efficiencies, maintain a pre-K program through an outside provider, and look to add a special ed program that we need. Anything based upon your discussion tonight, anything based upon the information you've received that you'd like us to reconsider or to consider as we go through this continued development of our budget.
I think that it would behoove us to show the public where are the teachers in the middle school and in the high school, using a master schedule approach. You know, here's the art department, here's every teacher, here's period 1 through 9. This is the class they teach, this is how many kids in the class. This is the total workload for this teacher. So the public can see visually, I'm a visual person, I'm a visual learner, that if I'm Mrs. Smith and I'm in the English department and I have 58 students and Mrs. Mills is in the English department and has 125, you know, the workload is unbalanced. And when we say efficiencies, it's really also repurposing so we can add additional things that our kids need according to next gen standards.
But we're also
What-
going to have a class
Yeah.
with 2 kids with a
So
full
that's not
teacher
really
and
balanced
SEA.
either, because like her workload,
You have
their
tuition
workload will be
students.
different.
You have
though.
tuition students coming in that
But that's
offset.
not normally for ICT though, that's not ICT, most schools run those programs.
You could have 3 kids move in next year, those are the things.
I get it, but that, like, if
Okay,
if
wait a
we're
minute. So when I looked at the schedule that Mike sent us, and you have a teacher that's got 3 kids in their class, should we cut that class? Is that what you're saying?
But no, but that's what you guys are saying.
No,
There's
that's
just
not what
no
I'm saying. I'm saying
consistency.
that
There's just
you
no
offer and you
consistency in it.
consolidate periods. So if I'm teaching 3 kids 3rd period, and I offer the same class 4th period, and there's 5 kids in it, maybe I just have one section of the same class with those kids in it.
That would make sense, but I don't know if that's what we're saying across the board.
I
There just doesn't
think-
seem to be consistency.
That's
Because now
when
we're
you,
gonna
I
run-
think
But you're gonna
that
have a class, like, you're gonna have a special ed teacher in a classroom for 2 students.
we already have that, and we have it with general ed. We already have it, and we have it with
But
general ed.
if it's an issue for that, why is it not an issue for this? That's what I'm saying, just be consistent with it, so that if it's an issue in that
So what's your
case,
suggestion?
The administration
I don't know,
can
but
come
then
up with
consistency from what you
what
guys
their
want.
parameters
So
need to
take
be.
away
It's not for
ICT
us
and
to
first
tell
grade
them
and first
to.
woods?
I'm not asking to take away anything. I'm not the one that has to take away anything from any level.
Well, I'm just asking what the solution is.
Well, the administration should present us with a solution. We shouldn't have to give them a solution. I'm not.
But I think it's a legal requirement.
No, it is. I'm not saying to get rid of them. I'm not saying to get rid of any program or any classes. I'm not the one who asked to get rid of anything.
So you're saying keep everything the way it is?
I'm not saying that either. I'm saying that.
What are you saying?
I want consistency from what you guys want then.
It's not, we're a board.
As a board, I want us to have consistency to what we want.
But we need to look at things before we're going through the budget process and looking at things.
I understand that.
So in our budget book, at the line by line, we will be putting together, in addition, Stephanie, to what you're requesting, we can get you the board of study.
I think the public should see a visual.
You guys are also talking about 2 different things. You're talking about a legally mandated ICT class.
I'm just talking about number
and-
of students
Hold on, I'm
per
talking.
teacher.
And you're talking about being efficient with classes in general, including general ed classes.
And
so you're
where
talking
we
about
can
2
add.
very different things.
And also, when I say efficiencies, I want to clarify here. When I say efficiencies, I'm also looking for opportunities to expand the curriculum. So if a teacher can, if this class has low enrollment because there's not interest,
Right.
what can we offer that the kids would want to take? That's, how can we expand? So
I agree with that. I'm not
do not
saying
take that I
that.
want to, I have a kid in middle school and who will be going to high
I'm
school.
not saying anybody wanted cuts. I'm just saying that I'm
You just
hearing-
said I wanted to cut.
I didn't say anybody wanted to cut. I just said I'm hearing conflicting that it's okay now to run a program.
It's legally mandated.
I'm not, but if we didn't go with this model, we wouldn't have to run a classroom.
Well,
with
no, that's what
two.
you're, that's not necessarily true because there's 11.
It might be.
There's 11 children classified in that room right now. So that means in that room in kindergarten, right now, there's 11 children classified that have IEPs that are getting ICT currently. So that's probably one of our bigger ones. We didn't split them last year because we were like, we'll keep 11 of them in there, right? This is the numbers we have. So now we're going to split them. So the only grade level, the only grade level that only has one ICT class is kindergarten. And that is because usually,
Wait, isn't that next year's?
That's not
yes,
true.
first grade.
That only has one ICT right now?
K-1-2.
Oh.
K-1-2. We're only concerned about K-1-2, right? In K-1-2, right now, the only one that has one is kindergarten. But usually kids move into those programs as they get older.
But then the other thing we're
So there's
talking about
11 of them right now.
But we were just talking about making sure then that the workload is the same. So now we're going to have one teacher whose that special ed teacher's workload.
She's talking about I'm talking about 58 kids. I'm a teacher with 58 and you're a teacher of 120. That is wildly
Yeah, but
different.
writing the IEP for and doing all of the testing for 9 students versus 2 is hours of
But I think
difference.
there's a lot of confusion right now. Because in kindergarten, I can have 12 or 15 IEP kids. That doesn't mean they're all ICT. They could be related services, math, science.
Well, we don't know that. That's why you're going to get us the information you're going to get.
I will give you specific numbers, so let's not make assumptions, right?
Let's get the information.
Exactly.
But
I think what Stephanie is saying,
very
this is my
different.
personal feeling because I've been there and I've done this as an administrator. I think the problem is our schedule, right?
Yes.
Our schedule is not working in the benefit of our students, it's working in the benefit of the adults. When I became an administrator the very first time, I said that, and one of the teachers said, I can't work 9th period. And I laughed, and I said, but there's 9 periods in a day, and that's when that class is. So I think the whole thing that we're doing, and we're doing well right now, is Margaret and Mike have brought in the outside consultant. We're looking at that, we're looking at numbers. We have Aaron looking at class selection and what that looks like. Personally, I would have that done by now, and it's okay that it's not, but that's what we need to focus on, is where are the needs and the wants of our kids and making sure we have the best program. We may have 4 too many, I'm making up numbers, so please teachers don't go after me. We may have 4 too many science teachers. Okay, so let's figure out, where is the science needed? Okay, is there something needed at the middle school that we're not getting? So I think we all need to take a breath, because I hear what everybody's saying.
And to that point, I'll go back to the fact that program will drive staff. And so we are having conversations in these meetings about program, about what we might like to add in terms of a special ed program tonight, what we might like to add in terms of a technology program. As we near the line by line, we'll have specific staffing models for you to, not models, but staffing data for you to review, such as the summary of full-time staffing equivalents by location, by peer staff by secondary, peer staff by elementary, peer staff by where their funding comes from a grant or not, a summary of staffing changes. That will all be included in our budget book for you as a board to study at that time, where we're still in the middle of our budget development, but should have a little bit more data, particularly about what programs you're giving us feedback to and schedule building.
Perfect. And that's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's keep it moving. Next is superintendent's report. I'm sorry, you have more? I need to go home.
Okay, so I have a very brief update tonight.
Okay.
So I'm pleased to announce that our girls varsity cheerleading squad placed fourth out of 14 at this past weekend. We'll get through it. At this past weekend's National Cheerleading Association High School National Competition. It's actually the first time our cheerleading squad has placed in the top 5 in that, and congratulations to our coach, Nicole Karen, and all of our sailor cheerleaders. You have made us very proud. And if you paid attention to tonight's agenda, I think it's important that we take time to recognize 3 remarkable individuals who have dedicated many years of service to our district. You'll see anybody who submitted their resignation for the purpose of retirement coming up has given clearly dedication to our district, but I want to recognize Enrique Catalan, Assistant Superintendent for Business, Dr. Margaret Weller, Executive Director for Curriculum Instruction, Professional and Personnel, and Lisa Schuchman, Executive Director for Pupil Personnel Services. Mixed emotion. I'm sorry.
I know, it's almost 11.
You know that my kids are not going to have you read their story tonight. It is with mixed emotions that we share the news of their resignations for the purpose of retirement. And while we're saddened to see them leave, we're also here to celebrate and commend your outstanding contributions. I've only been here for a few moments in time, and I appreciate your support of me. I see your dedication to the students and to the staff, and we will have time. I look forward to the remaining time that I get to work with you, and wishing you well in your endeavors as you do go into your next chapter. So congratulations. There are no follow-up items to report on tonight. I do have a couple items that I will update later. At the next board meeting, we're looking for total aid for the PPS department, master schedule to show teacher count and total count student by course, and also create a chart of special ed classes comparing 23 and 24. And I know I don't have to tell my children to go to bed because they better be
Anybody have board comments and new business?
Somebody just bring.
Okay, perfect.
We were way over.
All right, have a motion to close the meeting? Motion to close. Second. All in favor? Aye.
You win again.
The ayes have it.